Mm-hmm. Because Will, he said he'd be back shortly.
I'm back. Yes.
Do you want to make a few announcements in the beginning?
I will go ahead if you're ready for me to.
Yes. Ready.
All right. Well, welcome everyone. If this is your first time joining us for one of our CB8 virtual committee meetings, you'll notice that you are muted and you're going to remain muted throughout the entirety of the meeting. Everyone will stay muted except for the committee co-chairs, Chuck and Craig, and any of our presenters as we move through the agenda. Following each agenda item and presentation, the co-chairs will call on members of the public who wish to speak. You can participate by going to the reactions icon and pressing the raise hand button there. The reactions icon can be found at the bottom of your screen if you're using a PC. Only press the raise hand button once. If you press it a second time, it'll go back down. And make sure you press the button that says raise hand. Don't press the thumbs up or the wave. Those will disappear. If you're calling in from the phone, it's *9 to raise your hand and *6 to unmute. Be on the lookout for a prompt asking you to confirm unmuting once the co-chairs call on you. If you're having any problems with Zoom, you can use the chat feature for technical support. It is not available for the co-chairs or the presenters to see. So if you chat me, they will never see those chats. If you're using an older version of Zoom, you'll need to go to the participants section where you can find the raise hand feature there. And finally, please do not raise your actual hand or wave at the screen because we may not be able to see you. You can always chat me. I'm here for support. And finally, I'll close with, we are aware that the open meetings law has gone back to the previous version following the end of the state of emergency. In the short notice and during the summer, we felt like this is the most fair and open way to conduct our meetings. So if you have any questions, you can always chat us about that as well.
Yeah, I think just to follow on with that, our regular board meeting, which is in 2 weeks, will be in person, is my understanding.
It will.
Yeah.
Correct. And it will be outside.
Our meeting is so early in the month that there wasn't time to really make arrangements for anything other than our virtual meeting.
Correct.
So I'd like to welcome everyone to the Transportation Committee July meeting. I'm Chuck Warren, co-chair, and Craig Lader, my fellow co-chair.
Good evening, everyone.
Glad to see everyone. First item on our agenda is Fairway Market at 86th Street, and they've said they were coming back to report on things, and I know that just the other day we had a message sent to the board, and I don't know, Will, if you pass that on to the folks at Fairway. And I see we have Dan McCarthy, and I think
Tom Santa Croce.
Yeah, I see Tom, who's in charge of operations, and we'd like you to sort of review where things are, and maybe if you got that email, comment on that email. They were comparing Fairway to other grocery stores around the area, and the fact that they seem to be much cleaner and much quicker to get things off the sidewalk than you folks. So maybe you could address that, and we'll have questions, obviously, from the board and possibly others as we after you talk. I don't know, Tom, you wanna go, or
Yeah.
or Dan, whoever wants to take it away.
I'll let Tom address the operations. We did receive the email and appreciate it. And again, I'll tell the board and the chairs and the members that we are always available. It doesn't have to wait for a meeting. You can contact us directly. And I know that Tom has offered and has provided his number, and Will has a way to contact us. So anytime during the month, we are available to the community board.
Thank you.
And Tom, I'll let you address the where we are, where we're going, and the email.
Great. Thanks a lot, guys. Good evening, everyone. So I did receive the email. Couple notes on the on the email. First, let me talk about the changes. So again, no major updates from the last month from a progress standpoint. I think we talked about everything that we had promised regarding a forklift reduction, a change in our drop off for 33% of our volume. When I look at the email that was sent, and the comparison was Seatown and Key Food, you know, the one thing to keep in mind, both of those do 16% of the volume we do. It's about a day and a half worth of our volume is in those two stores. So it's not exactly apples to apples when you look at both of those. They're, you know, small, tiny stores with very limited product coming in. When I looked at some of the pictures regarding product out on the sidewalk, it looks like the timestamp was about an hour and 5 minutes difference. And it looks like it went from, at least what I could see, of 3 pallets down to something less than 1 pallet. So I'm not sure what was meant by that, but I'm not seeing it in the email. I do know that from July 3rd, I assume this picture was probably taken on July 5th, or the email was, at least from the timestamp. It seems as though there was a perception that there was a lot of product on the sidewalk. Again, in the picture, I'm not seeing it, but I do know that we had an issue with our elevator. I think I talked earlier, maybe 2 meetings ago, that our elevators were that we inherited from Fairway had a lot of issues. We put a lot of money into them. We had another breakdown of our elevator that happened on July 3rd, and it cost, and it's our issue, it cost a significant amount of money, and it took 3 days to get the parts in, and we did get that elevator up and running yesterday, day before yesterday, July 6th. So again, I think considering that elevator was down, which is our main transportation mode to get the product in, the store did a really nice job keeping product off the sidewalk, considering. I'm reading through it now to see if there was any other issues or things to talk about. But I think that's it from a high level, but I'll open it up for questions in case I missed something.
Yeah, why don't we, I know that I see Rita Popper has her hand up. Why don't we unmute Rita, and she may have some questions or comments that she wants to make about this point.
Hi, Tom. I want you to know how much we appreciate that you do come here. I have been associated in the supermarket business for 27 years across the country as I work for Nabisco, which is a store-door delivered product. I am the author of that email. That was not July 4th weekend. It was the weekend before. But what I was alluding to, you see boxes of produce, of product rather, and in an hour and 15 minutes or 5 minutes coming back, each box has been moved on a small cart, one at a time. East 86th Street, near your store, looks like a third world nation. I knew that you would bring up the volume, but you know, deliveries, it's proportional. You get more deliveries, you have a bigger space. They get smaller deliveries, it's proportional. I was invited down to keep food, things come. The forklifts are on the truck. The forklifts bring the product to the chute where it's going to go down. They go back to the truck, get the next one. They don't leave those pallets around. Now you have an empty area in the front of your store where it was cafe or go, or, grab and go. It's been empty. You can move some of that stuff. That's garbage. On the west side, I know you merchandise on the sidewalk, but you're merchandising food. Here you are merchandising refuse. And the street looks, I'm telling you, terrible. Not only that, I happen to be a really good shopper at Fairway. I've been shopping between Fairway and Zabar's for 57 years. Now I go in, I honestly feel that I'm in a bargain basement, and your prices are not bargain basement. I bring a bag and they say to me, we can't stock your bag. You have to stock your own bag. But if I take a paper bag from you, I get it stocked. These are things, there's no doubt you want to beef up the store, you want to make it financially solvent, and I'm sure get it off your books as soon as possible. Whatever it is, there is no reason for our street and the people who live on the street and the people who walk on the street to have to, look at all the garbage. And I only took small part of it. So I'm frustrated. I'm very frustrated whether I want to continue shopping at Fairway or even inside the store. I'm telling you, Tom, things are not running the way a store should run. And I have been in stores from coast to coast, from little towns to big towns, stores that make Fairway look like a miniature. And I've never seen a store like that. So you do whatever you want with this information, but I want you to know I think it's disgraceful. Thank you.
Tom, you want to reply to that?
Yeah, there's a lot there to reply to. Thanks for the information, first of all. Boy, there's a lot to address. If I think of 74th Street, we do have a permit to sell food, but it does similar volume, and there is the same amount of product that does have to come in and out of that store. So I'm not sure how familiar you are with it, but it is very similar to the amount of freight that we do bring in. It does get staged on the sidewalk. It's not much different, other than the fact that there is a permit where we do sell food in addition to the product that's sitting there. Two is regarding Key Foods and your reference to them on how the product comes off the forklift and it goes in it being proportionate. While the building may be proportionately bigger to accommodate the volume, the receiving and their one means of getting it into the basement, much like our one means, is very similar. In one pallet to go down a roller rack or one pallet to go into an elevator shaft takes a lot more time when there's 20 pallets on a truck versus, a pallet or two. And it's just a fact. And that's all I can do is state the facts on what we deal with based on the volume, regardless of the size. The entry and exit to the building with product is no more beneficial than what most have. So that does create an issue. And I'm really trying to stick with first just addressing, what's called, what you're describing as, garbage outside. And it's a shame because we really put a lot of effort into it, and I think we cleaned it up quite a bit. So I'm really, I'm real sorry you feel that way for the outside. Regarding the inside, you made a comment on the bags. During COVID, there was a decision made, and it was with all retailers, or at least all retailers should have been, with folks bringing in their own bags. They were required to pack their own bags. And again, that was COVID. That's when all our glass was up. It was a transition that we made. But if we were bagging for you, and it was coming from our bag to keep our employees safe and keep the customers safe, we would bag into that. Now that COVID's over, I will check and see if that practice is still happening. It shouldn't be, but I'll make sure of that. And we'll talk to the folks over there regarding that.
Tom, I want you to succeed. I love Fairway, but I have to tell you, you're doing exactly what I would do if I was in your position. But I am asking you to really understand that the sidewalk is littered with things that are not food. Well, food, there are deliveries there, but all the pallets stay there. They plastic for the bread delivery. Every store gets bread delivery. Everyone is in proportion. I understand what you're doing. If you keep doing this, it's your store. It's not my store. I'm telling you, it needs to be fixed if it's going to be successful. I think that I had a friend come up who hadn't been on 86th Street in a while and lives down on 69th Street and said, I never knew how dirty this area was. She said, what's with Fairway? I mean, you have fixtures on the street, not food on the street. You know what you have. And I have to tell you, you need a damn good manager running 86th Street. I don't think you have it. I'm not available, but for a price. No, seriously, it's a bad thing. It's a bad thing. It's an accident waiting to happen. But we've been hearing every week how it's being taken care of. It's being taken care of. It's not being taken care of. So one pile disappears and another one comes back in its place. I just want you to know tonight is the night of truth. Again, thank you for coming. And I know that you're going to fix it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Michelle Birnbaum, I think. Michelle, can we unmute
Yeah,
Michelle?
thanks, Chuck. Yeah, okay. Thanks, Tom, for what you've done so far. We recognized at our last meeting that, yes, you did listen, and yes, you did clean up some stuff. And I was particularly grateful about you eliminating the 3 out of the 4 forklifts. That's very helpful. Clearly, with the improvement, which we very much appreciate, having your ear, we very much appreciate that. We still feel there's a little ways to go. I'm sure you will agree. Let me just ask you a few procedural questions so we can better understand this. What happens, because we see the pallets piling up on the street. Sometimes they're against the building. Sometimes they're piled at the curb. What is the protocol with the pallets? Is the pallet on the truck? Or
Now, here's how it works. Pallets come in on a truck, and we get trucks in the morning. We get additional trucks at night. The pallets that come in on the evening truck, and that's our main supplier, 33% of the total. They get packed out at night. When they get packed out downstairs in the basement, which is where most of those items go, it's grocery, dairy, frozen. They get brought back up sometime during the day to get stacked up in the procedure is stacked up in 2 pallet positions, and it could be 5, 6, 7 pallets high. So when the truck re-arrives to drop off pallets with product on it, they take back those wooden pallets at that point. So much like the baskets for they look like bread bins. They're bins that deliver all different types of food. It's an exchange program. Pallets come in, they go back out, they get on a truck. These bread bins, for lack of a better word, totes as we call them, same thing. They come in, and the next day need to go back out.
So with that circular arrangement, that means that because those trucks come in late in the afternoon, those pallets are on the street for 24 hours. In other words, they get unloaded and then they wait on the street to be reloaded onto the truck in the next 24-hour cycle, late afternoon. Is that correct?
Yeah, kind of. It's cycle of 24 hours. So if the truck comes in, let's say 5 o'clock tonight, That'll go in. It'll get staged downstairs in the basement for the night crew. The night crew will pack it out. When they're finished up at, whatever time in the morning, it might be, 7, 8, 9 o'clock, depending how heavy their workload is. Those pallets, as other products are coming into the store in the morning, 8, 9, 10 o'clock, we'll bring those empty pallets out, store them on the street in 2 pallet positions as we get fresh product in, waiting for that same truck that comes in at night, so those pallets can go back in that truck.
Okay, so what's the alternative to that stacking on the street? Is it true that with the closure of that cafe, do you have additional interior space now?
No, that cafe is being revamped and improved on, so that's going to end up reopening at a point in time. But we're working on that plan right now.
Okay, have the baskets, that security basket system, is that in full bloom now, where the basket can't come out the front door without getting locked?
No, it's ordered. I don't think it got installed yet. I could check with one of our guys right now, but I don't think it came in yet. But it's
so that's actually quite a long time, because that was in the works prior to our first meeting.
Yeah, everything we order, it doesn't matter if it's case equipment, anything that's orderable right now has been a massive challenge worldwide. Not just
I know there's a supply chain problem. I understand that. But let me say that when that is instituted, those baskets will remain inside the store and not come out. Now, okay.
And
so and just let me jump in here, Tom. There's also a regulatory and a landlord issue in terms of the installation of that fix, and we are past that, and we're at the point of installation now. So that, I expect that as soon as it becomes available, it'll be functional very soon.
Okay, that's good news. So let me ask you the practical question. What can we do about the pallets being on the sidewalk for 24 hours in some cases? And also, what can we do to expedite your unloading of any given truck that's there at that time? I'm not sure you have enough staff doing that action.
Yeah, I think I addressed that in the last 2 meetings. So 2 things. The pallets clearly are not out there for 24 hours. We're bringing the pallets in. They're coming in at night. There's no pallets that are constantly out there for 24 hours because there's a work procedure that has to happen. Now, will there be pallets out there? I was real clear about that even 2 meetings ago. There's going to be a point of time. Yeah, there's going to be pallets out there. We have no choice but to keep pallets out there. I think our goal was to reduce them from this massive length of train that was 2 pallets wide, going as far as 12 pallets deep to a very concise area so they're available for pickup. So like I said in the beginning, I can't promise anything that I can't deliver, but when it comes to labor, we added on labor, and I articulated that in the last meeting also. We added on payroll. We also took away 3 forklifts. The 3 forklifts were—
That was very helpful.
Well, it was helpful in one aspect that I got the 3 forklifts off the street, but it slows down the bringing in of the pallets now to the store. Because while before we might have 2 or 3 forklifts going at a time, or even receiving them using one downstairs, we're now limited to 1 forklift. So one thing helped on the street, and it might have slowed down another issue.
Well, it helped on the street because it moved your trucks into your loading zone as a otherwise your trucks were in a traffic, and so the fairway is not the only consideration on that street. We have traffic flow, and using the loading dock for the forklifts was a tremendous impact on the traffic flow. So to that extent, it was improvement on the street. But let me ask you, I'm not going to tell you how you can improve on your operations. I can only report on what we see, what the community sees, and what the community comments on. So in your view, what else can you do to make the situation better?
Yeah, right now, I think we've made a lot of progress. As far as making it better, the one help would be if the elevator didn't go down. That's a very short window. Other than that, I'll have to get back to you next meeting.
Okay, so will you be back to us at our, I don't know that we'll have an August, but if not a September meeting. But if we have in August, to get back to us on an update, because the issue is, what can you do to make it better? We don't know your internal operations. We're observers of the net result. So while there's improvement and we're appreciative of it, it still seems to be a very big infringement on the street. And we're assuming and hoping that there's room for improvement. There's always room for improvement.
There's always room for improvement, but I need to be clear. If we're expecting the front of Key Foods in front of Fairway, that's an unrealistic expectation. And from the first meeting, I tried to make myself very clear that is not possible with one entrance for product into a building of our size. If we think we're going to get that product in and off the street in very quick time and have nothing on the street, it's a false expectation that I couldn't promise then, and I certainly couldn't promise now. But I could look at what else we could do to fix it. But if the expectation is Key Foods pictures, that just is not possible, nor could I promise it.
When you say you have one entry point, that's the front door of the store, or is that the side, that little side door?
It's the side door. That's where product comes in for receiving. You can't enter product into the front door. You can't enter product into the exit door because that's where customers are coming in and out of. And that'd be even worse because that'd be a hazard where we could actually put somebody in harm's way of pallets.
So it's that small entry that's where product goes in, that's where pallets come out, that's where all the action is.
Yeah, basically what it does is it goes into that area, and it's a staging area. From that area, it goes into an elevator upstairs to the next floor, or it goes in an elevator downstairs. And there's no room. It's not like a traditional supermarket, that you'll see, anywhere across the USA. It's a staging area. In the staging area, it goes downstairs to a very small back room. It's a lot of handling, piece by piece. We don't have forklifts downstairs. The only forklift left now is there. We don't have racking, so it is a manual process. The manual process does cause a delay in how quickly we get it in versus our store in Pelham, which has acres of property where a truck would back up. It would come off very quickly with a pallet, go into a storage rack, and within who knows, a half an hour, let's say, that would be gone. In this situation, we're in the city. We're on the street in the city dealing with a different situation.
My last question, I'll say I look forward to seeing you again in September and wish you a good summer. But my last question is there anything from a construction point of view that you can do to that staging area that would improve flow?
No, not at all. We've looked at all that. There is nothing to expand in there at all to give us more room or create a back room. Not one bit, not in the current layout, no.
All right, thank you. I wish you well, and I look forward to hearing from you again.
Thank you. Have a nice summer.
Tom and Dan, we thank you for coming back to the committee and for the work that you're doing. And I know this is New York City. It's always been difficult for stores of any size to operate in the city. And
can I just mention something quickly, just for the benefit of Fairway and everyone else? Will did put in the chat that the next meeting will be September 1st of the Transportation Committee. There's no meeting in August, but also I think the expectation is that the September meeting will be an in-person meeting. We're not sure yet whether there will be any ability to have a hybrid type of meeting or have a remote presentation. So that may impact whether we're able to have Fairway representatives or not. We'll send out an invite, but the dynamics of the meeting in September will change. So we're all going to have to figure out what that means. So I just wanted to make sure everyone was clear with that.
thank you, Craig.
I appreciate that. With September 1st, though, because I just committed to coming back, that might be an issue for me. I have a commitment that night on September 1st. That might be difficult to get out of, so I might have to postpone until the next meeting.
Okay, well, we'll work with your schedule, yes. I see that costs, Michelle, I see your hands up, but costs also wanted to say something.
Yeah, I mean, we've been discussing and telling Fairway how to run their business. Why don't we just ask certain things to be done rather than giving them suggestions? Let's just say we need this, and this done, and let them come back and tell us how they're going to do it or if they've done it. I mean, here we are trying to tell them how they're running their business, which, we're just spinning wheels at this stage.
Well, Okay, I don't think we're exactly doing that, but I understand what you're saying, Cos. Michelle, did you want to say something? Yes, Michelle, one last word before we leave this.
Yeah, I'm disturbed by Craig's remark. In the sense that if we are returning to in-person meetings, that means that we should be returning to the methods and the procedures that we did in-person meetings. And we always had presentations if needed. People could can just get up and speak. They can bring boards. They can do whatever they want. But I have an expectation that no meeting should be stymied because it's going to be in person.
No, that's not what I said. I said that because it's in person, it may make it more challenging for certain invitees to be able to attend in person. And we don't know yet whether we'll have the ability to remote in a presentation and have people like the representatives from Fairway be able to do this remotely if they can't make it in.
Okay.
Yes, it means
I
returning.
understand. Let me make this point though, Craig. I understand what you're saying. I, for one, have no expectation of in-person meetings also having an option for remoting in. I don't think we need to make it more complicated than it ever was. If an applicant cannot attend or will not attend, they don't attend. But I don't want our meetings to be electronic manifestations and all the delays that happen with that we've been faced with this whole year.
Yeah.
So
Michelle, I think that's a conversation for the board to have at another time, not during a transportation meeting, right?
I would
Excuse
agree.
me, Will.
Yeah.
That may be the case. I'm going on record now then to say, let's have that conversation.
Yeah.
Thank
And that's fine. I think I agree we should end this. I just want to make sure for Fairway's benefit that they know that there are still questions about September.
Okay.
And I would thank the chairs and thank all the members of the board for your input. And we're in this a little bit over a year, and we are doing everything we can to really make this a operation that the entire community can be proud of. We are part of this community. We're not going anywhere, and we were dealt some bad cards. But you know what? We're going to make a good hand out of them. And I think at the end of the day, everybody is going to be happy with what we're doing. So thank you very much for inviting us back.
Thanks, Dan. We do appreciate your efforts here.
Yes.
And I don't know if Andrew Fine wanted to comment on this. I see a hand up here from a member of the public. Quick comment before we leave this. Is that what, Andrew? Can we have you?
Thank you. I'm just wondering if Fairway Market, as part of the East 86th Street Association, we've been trying to fill tree pits with like plants and vegetation in general. And I've noticed that in front of Fairway Market, the Instacart folks and the like services have chained carts and wagons and locks and that sort of thing to all the tree guards outside of Fairway Market. And Fairway Market has also used the tree pits as sort of a garbage receptacle at points. I'm just wondering what Fairway is doing to alleviate that problem, and if they have any policies that deal with Instacart or the folks that are rolling up and double and triple parking to pick up groceries for patrons in general. Thank you.
Regarding the parking, double, triple parking, that we don't address. The Instacart shoppers, we do have procedures for. I made a note of the flower beds in the trees you're referring to. I don't have any info to speak on that, but I'll have to follow up with the folks in the store and just get a little bit more knowledge on what's happening so we could address it. But that I was unaware of.
So there are about 64 flower beds or tree pits between 2nd Avenue and Park Avenue, of which we have planted approximately 56 or 57 And we, as an association, have decided that the tree pits in front of Fairway are virtually unplantable due to the high traffic, the deliveries, the Instacart folks and all that. Can you guys plant those pits, or would you commit to planting those pits? Because like I said, we've done this at our own expense, and we just have like no faith that we could actually put something in those tree pits to beautify the neighborhood where they won't get absolutely trampled and stomped by constant deliveries and flow of delivery.
Yeah, I will look into that, absolutely. Before I commit to anything, let me just try to understand it, and then I'll be sure to get back to you guys.
I mean,
But
for instance, we've put like,
I think we got it. And
you get the idea.
move
We
Yeah.
can use a little help there.
They're going to look into it.
We'd appreciate if you consider that. Thank you.
We've got a lot of things on our agenda. Thanks. Thank you again, Tom and Dan. We'll
Thank you, I appreciate it.
continue. And we appreciate your operations and what you're trying to do in the neighborhood.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Do we have a NYPD 19th precinct traffic enforcement people here? Will?
Yes, they're here. I mean, I mute one set of them, but if there's others, please let me know.
Why don't, and I think we wanted to talk about, this came up at a few meetings, the bike enforcement discussion, and I think it might be useful if people from the traffic enforcement unit could talk a little bit about what they've been doing, and then I think people will have some questions and concerns that they might want to bring up. So I'm not sure who would like to lead off for the
Good
traffic.
evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I agree. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having us. I'm here. I'm the Sergeant Palagwachi, the traffic sergeant of the 19th precinct. And here beside me is one of my officers, traffic from the traffic unit. So yes, so for our enforcements this year, we have picked it up on the bicycle enforcements now that the city has opened up. And we've been seeing a lot of these bicyclists, e-bikes and mopeds, e-scooters, and even dirt bikes riding recklessly. So we have increased our enforcement in those areas. And we have also been on First Avenue, Second Avenue bike lane. We've summoned all from 5-9 to 9-6 on First and Second. We have also been on 6-1 and 6-2, the bike lane, going from York to Madison. So our bike enforcements have gone up this year, and it mostly has to do in part because of the bicycle collisions have gone up this year significantly, but that's because last year was unprecedented, and now that this year, the city has opened up, we see more people out and riding these bicycles.
So Sergeant, I think we've had a lot of complaints of bicycles going, obviously, in the wrong direction, and not stopping for lights and things like that. And that's been, I guess, a problem for a while. I mean, have you seen an increase in those types?
Yes, we actually have. We have seen these bicyclists riding recklessly on the bike lanes and also on the streets. So our enforcements have increased in those areas of disobeying the traffic control device and even riding recklessly. So we have increased our enforcements in those areas.
And sidewalks also, or?
So yeah, sidewalks as well. So if someone's on the sidewalk, we'll put them aside and we'll explain to them you can't be riding on the sidewalk. We issue them a summons for reckless riding the bicycle, or if they did another infraction, we'll give them that too.
Well, why don't we open up? I see we have a number of board members who have some questions that they'll want to address to Sergeant Palakwachi and his colleagues. So why don't we start with Rita Popper? Can we unmute Rita?
I sent in a picture to Craig and Chuck it's e-bikes, and one has a license plate, and one doesn't. What is there any, I don't know, rules, regulations about, these look like motorcycles, and they're on the sidewalk, as you said, and they're on where they shouldn't be. But if they hurt somebody, are they insured? And issuing traffic tickets, has anybody just discerned whether they do any good? I mean, what happens if the person just throws the ticket away? If you have a car, they can come and take your car away. In Paris, if you have a traffic problem with your bicycle, you pay for the ticket on the spot, or your bicycle is taken. And because of that, people don't disobey what the rules are. I'm not looking for Big Brother looking for you, but we have motorized mopeds, motorized scooters, motorized e-bikes, motorized pedal bikes, and many of them are on the sidewalk. And I just want you to know, where should the people walk? And elderly people, if somebody gets knocked over by one of those e-bikes and bangs their head, that's a life changer. Not a game changer, that's a life changer. That's not, breaking, but dusting off a bruise. So, I mean, is there any licensing that you know of that's being worked on for all e-bikes? I mean, that line.
So starting, I'm Officer Sherrill. I work with Sergeant Poligwachi. So starting last week, I believe the 26th of June, we started an initiative where we did education first for all these motorized e-bikes, mopeds, scooters, even bicycles. We handed out pamphlets. We had auxiliary officers handing out pamphlets, first doing education, not just giving them summonses or whatever it may be. We gave them warnings with the education. This is allowed, this is not allowed. If you don't register, you don't have a license, you don't have insurance, these vehicles are going to be taken away from you because they're not allowed on the street. Most of these people are using the bike lane. They're not using the street where they should be. They're going on the sidewalk, like you said. So starting June 26th, that's what we did. And in that span of time, we handed out, I think it was 500 or so pamphlets at different locations, mostly the Queensboro Bridge, because that's where we're having the most issues. And that's where they're coming from. They're coming from Queens into Manhattan. After that, we started doing enforcement. We vouchered or seized 5 or 6? 6 of these motorized scooters, e-bikes. There are specific criteria that you need for it to be labeled as needing insurance, needing registration. All right, you need a driver's license, you need a VIN number on this vehicle. If it has a VIN number, if it doesn't have pedals, if it goes over a certain miles per hour, if it weighs over a certain, so a different weight, it's over 100 pounds. All these type of vehicles have to be registered, insured, and operated by a licensed driver. What's happening is these motorists are buying these moped scooters from the stores in various locations, Brooklyn, Queens, Manhattan, Bronx. And the stores are the problem. They're selling these people these $4,000 mopeds, saying that's an e-bike, that they don't need to get it registered, that it's fine with the DMV if they drive around the city, they can use the bike lane, but it's not true. That's why we did the education first. We did a joint operation with the 108 precinct in Queens, right over the Queensboro Bridge. We did a joint operation with the 2-3 precinct up in East Harlem.
Thank you for what you do. just one question. What happens if when you give a ticket, a person doesn't pay it? What happens to them?
So the next time that person would be stopped, it's the same as a motor vehicle. If you don't pay your ticket and a certain amount of time you don't report to court, the New York State will suspend your driver's license. Okay, so because they're technically, the bicycles is different because it doesn't count as points on your license as a bicycle.
Right.
E-bike, scooters are different, okay? They'll get the summons. If they don't report it after a certain amount of time, they're privileged to ride these bikes. They're never gonna be able to ride them, and the fine increases. I know just from personal experience, a bicyclist I ever wrote a summons to for a red light, simple red light. I explained to him, it doesn't affect your license because you're a bicyclist, but take care of it. He decided not to take care of it, and then he went up to court, and I was notified to go to court. I testified in court to the red light, thinking, okay, see what's going to happen. He was hit with a $1,400 fine for a bicycle. Okay, so it does affect them at some point.
Right. I mean, if there's no license on it, how do you know who owns the bike? The e-bike, the ones that look like a motorcycle.
Like a bicycle with like the electric motor?
Yeah.
Okay, so those are legal. They can ride in the bike lanes. They have to follow the rules. Bicyclists have to follow the rules, the same rules that a vehicle would have to follow.
And well, thank you.
You said the motorized vehicles. The motorized vehicles.
Sorry?
I think
Chuck?
we got frozen.
I think Chuck cut out.
And Chuck cut out also. Okay. I would say let's go to some of the members of the public who have their hands raised.
Yeah, I see that. The sound is, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, now we can.
Okay. I just wanted to ask the folks from the enforcement unit, what you said was, just want to make it clear that if it's a motorized vehicle, it has got to be registered, they have to have insurance, and you have to have a regular driver's license to drive it,
They
correct?
have to be, for it to be considered one of those vehicles that has to be insured, has to have registration, and they have to have a valid driver's license. It has to have certain criteria. It has to have a VIN number. It has to have no pedals. It has to have to go over a certain speed limit, certain weight. Okay, if it's one of those bicycles that has the detachable battery, that's legal. Okay, the ones that look like scooters that everybody's driving around, those are not legal. They can't be riding them in the bike lane. They have to be registered, they have to be insured, they have to be a valid driver's license to ride those. And they definitely can't be on a bike.
Okay, thank you. We have a couple of, Will, there seems to be a problem with the sound. I don't know if
Chuck, you cut out now.
problem with the sound a little bit. We have a couple of members of the public that wanted to say something here. Lynn Cashman, can we unmute Lynn?
Go ahead, Lynn.
Yes, hi. I'm really disturbed about what's going on the East Side Promenade. It's like a free-for-all. You got every which way person going on any kind of a vehicle, mopeds, delivery men. Something has to be done. It's criminal. Nobody can enjoy themselves. You've got, I don't understand. What is the regulation? There is none. So, what can be done about this? You've got mopeds, motorized bicycles, motorized scooters, delivery guys coming down, and regular bicycles. So what do we do about it?
Okay, so we didn't know that the promenade was an issue. Is this happening every day? At what time?
This is happening
afternoon, evening?
excuse me, this is happening all the time. We brought it up in various community board meetings. It's probably more of an issue on a weekend, but it has to stop. Somebody is going to get badly injured. Who wants to walk along and constantly look behind you that someone's going to ram you with a vehicle? And some of the motorcycles, they're going pretty fast.
Right, I agree. I'm gonna ask my guys to go and address that condition on the promenade.
Okay.
Okay. Leah Hanlon, I believe, also a member of the public that wants to say something. We have a few coming here, looks like. Can we unmute Leah?
I am unmuted. Officers, my apartment overlooks the intersection of 79th and 2nd. And every Sunday late afternoon, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, there are packs of maybe 50 of these dirt bikes and ATVs, I guess, dune buggies, four-wheel things that come down the road with very, very loud souped up engines. And on numerous occasions, they stop at the intersection. They don't stop at the light, forget the lights. They go through the lights. But at the intersections, they are wont to do not only donuts in the intersections, but wheelie donuts. A couple of weeks ago, I saw them at like 6 o'clock on a Sunday afternoon on a really nice day. The intersection was full of people with strollers, old people with walkers crossing in the crosswalks. There were cars that were kind of caught in the intersection that were trying to make perfectly legal and legitimate turns. And there were like half a dozen of these vehicles making wheelies and donuts. One of them went onto the sidewalk and went cut the corner, in front of the bank that's there, and just went on the sidewalk. There were people on the sidewalk. It was 6 o'clock on a Sunday. They went around there, and they come every single week at roughly the same time. I realize this is not the Wild West, but why can't you just catch them and block the road and stop them? Because this is not just they need an education. This is criminally reckless. I don't know how people have not been killed already.
So it is a chronic problem, you're right. All of Manhattan North, Patrol Borough Manhattan North, before COVID, we would have, every weekend we'd have a motorcycle detail where it's basically trying to do enforcement on these guys, trying to get those ATVs, those dirt bikes off the street. COVID happened, that went away. It started coming back a little bit last summer, but then that went away. The problem with those bikes is when we show up to the scene, I'm not saying me personally, but when you show up to try to stop them, none of them have plates. Some of them, barely any of them are wearing helmets. We're not allowed to chase as per the rules as the NYPD. We're not allowed to pursue them. So the minute we put our lights on and come over there and try to stop them and they take off, God forbid they do hop on the sidewalk and they run over 6 people, or they run a red light and they get T-boned and they're not wearing a helmet, they die. It's a problem. I know it's a chronic problem. We do have points where we set up to try to deter them. They usually don't stay in our precinct. They're more coming up and down 1st and 2nd Avenue. They do stop, like you said, on maybe the big intersections, and they try to, to do the donuts and the wheelies and all that. But for the most part, they're coming through. They're going downtown. They're going back uptown into the Bronx, whatever it may be. We're aware of it. It's kind of like a lose-lose situation. We cannot pursue them, and we can't. And when by the time we get there, they've already left the precinct. We try our best to coordinate with the following precinct. There's a roving band of 30, 40, 50 bikes going northbound on 1st Avenue. maybe they can stop them at 96th Street. Maybe they can stop them, you know, further up that precinct until the next precinct. Unfortunately, it's really tough to stop those bikes without information from maybe where they park them, so we can go and confiscate them and take them away. That's really all you know, we can do.
You know, officer, I understand your position, but that's really not a help to those of us who live at these intersections. But thank you.
You know, I'm on the other computer and it's possible that I did something in here. Let me go up there and see if that.
Okay, let's see.
I see Paul Crickler next.
Paul Crickler. Yeah, Paul Crickler is next. Can we unmute Paul?
Thank you. I think I'm on mute. I just want to say thank you to the NYPD. I ride my bike a lot across the Queensborough Bridge. I live in Roosevelt Island, and it's terrifying when you come on the bridge and there's 2 or 3 of these guys on something motorized doing 20, 30 plus miles an hour. And they're big, some of them. I can imagine it's very hard to tell what these things are just by looking at them. That's the problem we all face now. I understand that your criteria help sort through that, but when you're riding on a bike lane or on the bridge and these guys come at you, you have no idea if they're legal or not. But if you can do more enforcement, that'd be great. It's a huge accident waiting to happen because it's so narrow there. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Marilyn Aziz, I guess, Aziz? Can we unmute Marilyn?
Am I good to speak?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, go ahead, Marilyn.
Okay. I live on 69th and 5th, and in the conversation that occurred, Community Board 8, the discussion was about bikes being allowed when there's not a bike lane to use a bus lane. And on a regular basis, and this has been going on for years, ice cream trucks pull up into the bus lanes. And even though there are signs that said they may not stand there 7 days a week from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., they get chased and they come right back again. Initially, it was the 19th precinct that dealt with this. Apparently what was going on is that those tickets weren't being paid and it cost the city $6 million. But they're back at it again. And park enforcement now is helping out. But the bottom line is they still come back, they break the law. And I'm just wondering what can the 19th precinct traffic enforcement do, or if for that matter, anyone, any of them.
So you're talking about the ice cream trucks on Fifth Avenue?
Yeah, but they're on the Central Park side, on the west side of Fifth Avenue. And they're all straight down the park.
So what I could do is send one of my guys he's actually the expert in this area with enforcing these ice cream trucks. And now that the summer's here, we're going to see more and more ice cream trucks. And we did initially with my Captain Zafiro, we did speak about this issue coming up during the summer with ice cream trucks taking Fifth Avenue, and not only Fifth Avenue, but all around the precinct. So I'm going to send one of my guys. We're going to hit Fifth Avenue and anywhere where these ice cream trucks could cause a problem to the community and even traffic, the traffic congestion.
But can they keep them from coming back? They just, I don't know if they even get a ticket. I worked with Detective Lombardi, and he said the vendor laws are outdated and they can only get one ticket. And so they keep coming back.
Right. He's correct. It has changed a little, but we're going to have to see what else we could give them, what other summons we could issue, and try to correct it.
And so when do you think this change or this new attempt at stopping them is going to start taking place?
Well, we're going to start as soon as possible, maybe starting this weekend and going into next week.
And so when I see them, do I report it to the 19th precinct, 311, or park enforcement?
You can call 311, and when you call 311, it goes directly to our precinct, and we will see the type of call, and we will have to send somebody there. if not, if my guy's not working, we'll have a sector who'll go and issue a summons.
Yeah. The only other problem is that on the weekends, when you have, the only thing you can do on 311 is to report illegal parking. And when alternate side of the peak parking, street parking is over the weekend, then there's nothing that's done. I mean, I've been doing this for years now, and I said with Detective Lombardi, but it seems to be something, a problem just has no solution, and yet it's a very real problem.
So your question is, do you call during the weekend and nobody?
311 doesn't work.
Okay.
Because when a notice is sent in, which I've done on my own, and I said they're illegally standing, they said we don't have that category. It's they're illegally parking. But on the weekends, the alternate side of the street parking is not in effect.
Right, correct. Okay, I'm gonna look into that issue and address it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, we have Aura Masarski. Can we unmute Aura?
Yes, hi. I think I'm unmuted.
You are.
Okay. Good. I'm kind of following on the Fairway issue. I'm concerned about people, companies, big companies who seem to feel incorporate in their business plan free parking on the streets of New York.
Sorry, we've moved the agenda. We're not talking any longer about Fairway.
Okay, I'm not talking about Fairway. I'm talking about Amazon Fresh Direct.
That's not now. We'll talk a little possibly about that later on. That's a later agenda item. Right now, we're focused on bikes specifically.
Not for this discussion. Save that for later. Thanks.
Okay, can I bring it back later?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
We'll get to it later. We're specifically going to talk to that. I think next we have Abby Kanner.
Yeah, hi everyone. Thank you so much. I'm actually speaking to you a little later for number 4, but I did want to share something, a perspective I have on this, and this is a personal perspective. I think that e-bikes are an integral part of the commerce in New York City. They're here to stay, whether we like it or not. However, we really have to put safety first. Before the COVID, my wife and I, when it gets dark, we walk on the sidewalks, cross the streets. I would say half the e-bikes after dusk, when it's dark out, do not have any lights. So it really puts pedestrians in grave danger with these bikes going 20, 30 miles per hour with no lights. Not only does it put pedestrians in danger, but it also puts the actual drivers in danger. So the recommendation I have for you guys, maybe you can move this up the chain to maybe the new mayor or the new city council, is that, if you look at all these e-bikers, there are thousands of them, right? And they're all like Uber drivers or independents, but they all work for only a handful of companies. So it's a handful of companies that control thousands and thousands of e-bike riders. If you find out who these companies are, communicate with them, tell them, look, these are the rules of the road. If you want to do business in New York City, just like Uber, with licensing and insurance, you have to make sure the drivers are licensed, they're insured, and they have lights on their bikes. And if they're caught without a light on the bike or violating other law, no insurance, fine the company that employs them. That's the solution. And that's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks. Okay, let's see, we have, I think we have some more.
We have one more member of the public.
One more member of the public here.
Jacqueline Ottman.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Hi. I live over on 69th Street and I'm out on the city bike every day on the loop in Central Park that goes from 59th Street, 72nd down to 59th and around. And there's a growing number of these e-bikes and all kinds of motorized vehicles on that. Now, I don't know if 19th Precinct has any jurisdiction over Central Park, but it would seem that the same issue that Lynn Cashman described as going on at the Esplanade is also going on at the Central Park. Is there any like legislation that's been introduced in city council, for example, that would limit bike lanes and Central Park and the Esplanade to human-powered vehicles only? And put the motorized vehicles in with the cars? Is that a possible solution? Is that something anyone is working on potentially?
I haven't heard about that particularly, but maybe the officers know.
That could be a solution. I didn't hear anything about any legislation regarding that, but like that could be a solution. And I understand your frustration with these e-bikes. They're everywhere. Not only e-bikes, but bicyclettes and even mopeds. I live in the city, and like you were saying, they're everywhere. So what we try to do our best, and it's by enforcing and summoning them by giving them and seizing these bikes and giving them summonses that are hazardous, especially the red light and disobeying the traffic control device.
Just a clarification though, vehicles that are scooters and actual electric, like moped type of e-bikes, those are not permitted right now in the bike lane, correct? Bike lanes are really only for pedal assist pedal bikes, or or I forget which class e-bike it is, the ones that look like traditional bicycles more than motorized bicycles.
So they look a lot alike. The way you figure it out is when we stop them, we have to look for VIN numbers. We have to look, do they have pedals? Because some of them have pedals actually underneath where their feet would go. So if they have those pedals, but they're just hidden, they don't have VINs. They don't have a certain weight limit. They go less than 20 miles per hour. They technically are e-bikes. They are allowed to ride in those bike lanes. As far as the Central Park Promenade or whatever that road is, that would be a Central Park precinct issue. They would be coming from our precinct or the 20th precinct or Midtown South into the park, but the actual loop in the park, it would be a Central Park issue.
Thank you. Okay, we have a number of board members. Marco Tamayo, why don't we unmute Marco?
Thank you, Chuck. First, I had to mention something very important. I absolutely disagree what they did to Mr. Floyd. However, I extremely support the police department in our community. They have been working very professional, and I think is one of the best service that we have in our community. And in that direction, I think definitely we need new legislations about all the bikes without no exceptions. And then we need a clear enforcement of these bike regulations. With that, we cannot move forward. And we need to give more power to the police department to enforce these rules. Otherwise, we're gonna have an accident right here, plenty of accidents. And then we're gonna try to enforce something. I think it's time to have a resolution, especially asking the council person about the new legislations about bikes and the enforcement. Thank you.
Thank you, Marco. I think there's legislation that's been introduced in the state Senate, because some of the things you're talking about require state legislation to try to have essentially, licenses for bikes and stuff. And that's been talked about at our board, obviously, for a while. I'm not sure that that's going to go anywhere, but I think Liz Kruger, I believe, is looking into that. And so that's something to keep an eye on. Michelle Birnbaum, I believe, is next. Michelle, can we unmute Michelle?
Thank you, Chuck. Yeah, many of us for a long while now have been asking for licensing. I've been working with Rebecca Seawright. She has some interest in that. Because it's on the state level, it's become, it's sort of difficult for us to make a dent. But just a couple of questions for the police, for the precinct, and also to note that, you can go online and buy an electric bike kit that actually allows you to make an electric bike out of any regular bicycle. And there are no warnings on that packaging. That packaging, that kind of motor is illegal in many jurisdictions, but yet it's sold in all jurisdictions. And I tried to get legislation that would put the restrictive jurisdictions on the packaging, like to say, you can't sell this in New Jersey, Massachusetts, whatever it is. That's basically gone nowhere. Another issue that I proposed for the state was, now there are these long distance lights, these lights that throw a beam for a mile or more. And that's the kind of light that you need on a bicycle, not only for the safety of the cyclist, but because regular bicycles are fairly silent. A beam of light thrust way ahead will alert a pedestrian that a bicycle is coming. A lot of the problems come when a bike is creeping up on a pedestrian's not even aware that they're there. So those are a couple of the issues that should be handled at the state. And my question for the precinct is, do you have support for that kind of thing in the precinct and up the command? That's one question, because if we did have that kind of support, the happenings on the state level would be much more, likely if the institutions in the city would be pushing for that. And to that end, do the police really feel, you admit to the magnitude of this job, that they really can provide the enforcement when you're dealing primarily with unlicensed entities? And lastly, and I'll repeat them in order if you like, but lastly, what percentage of the fines that you issue, do they actually get paid? One of the resolutions that this board passed ages ago was that when a ticket is given, that the police should get feedback as to whether or not that ticket was adjudicated, or was it like thrown out for some kind of technicality? Because we had listened to the frustration of the police that they'll work very hard, they'll hand out tickets, there's a technicality or a no-show or something happens downtown, the ticket gets tossed out, but the police never know how that ticket was adjudicated. So if you could just briefly address some of those issues, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
So to answer your last question, yes, we have been having that issue of summonses being thrown out, but it's mostly when it comes to the judge. If the judge decides to throw out the summons, then that's the judge. We had a meeting last week regarding that. Some of my officers have gone to court, have testified beautifully, but the judge will throw out the case, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's up to the judge to decide if we've given enough the right testimony. Now, I've been doing this job for almost 16 years. I've been in the safety unit for over 6. My testimony is, my win percentage up until before COVID was in the 90s, 90 out of 100. And when we started doing in-person court again, which started about a month ago, we have new judges now, and they're coming from different locales. They're coming maybe from Brooklyn, they're coming from Manhattan South, they're coming from the Bronx. We can't seem to win. We do the same testimony that we've done in the past. We give all the relevant information that's needed to win the case, but for some reason, the judge throws out the case. We don't seem to know also, I mean, again, I've been in the unit for a while. I'm still going to court for the cases that I wrote back in 2015, 2014. It's 2021. There should be a certain amount of time that people, I mean, that's not up to me. That's state legislation that says that the motorist is allowed to reschedule. I'm allowed to, as a police officer, I'm allowed to reschedule once, and half the time I'm not even allowed to reschedule. So if I'm on vacation when they've rescheduled the case for the motorist, they can throw the case out. It's up to that judge. It's not up to me. And as far as if we know that the case has been adjudicated, we really don't. That's at a state level, and only Albany would know if the case is adjudicated. Sometimes we wonder, oh, why didn't we go to court yet for this case? And it'll be a year, 2 years, and then 3 years later, oh yeah, the case was thrown out, or the person paid the fine, or different variables happen. So.
Okay, thank you. I guess Michelle also asked, do you think that the police department in general would support state legislation to require licenses for bicycles and vehicles like that?
Well, I'm sure that the chief of transportation would definitely support that. We want to have a safe city. We understand that e-bikes and bicycles are a way for people to get around. So we want safety for everyone, pedestrians, vehicles, bicyclists. And if the chief knew that, all the members of a community would support that, I'm sure that they would have no problem supporting legislation to change those laws, to strengthen the law.
Thank you. Rebecca Dangor, I think is, Rebecca, can we unmute Rebecca Dangor? Hi, Rebecca.
Hi, thanks so much for coming. I just have a quick comment. I spent a lot of time during early voting by the queue on 72nd Street. And there were a lot of cyclists going really fast on the sidewalk there, which, as you know, is quite crowded, including one that had a huge trolley that took up the width of the entire sidewalk. So just as a problem location, I thought it would bring that up.
Thank you, Rebecca.
Thanks.
Okay, so where was it again? 72nd?
The 72nd and 2nd by the queue. All of the cyclists were going north. So that could explain why maybe they weren't in the bike lane on 2nd, but it can be very crowded, and I was there for many hours every day. And I just noticed it a lot more than in other areas.
Okay, so in my unit, there's an officer, Officer Tui, who's dedicated in bicycles. So he just goes out and enforces bicycles infractions. So I'm going to send them to 72nd and see what we can do.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you, Sergeant. Next is Trista Shimamura. Can we unmute Trisha?
Hi, I have just maybe two comments or two requests. So just to feed off of what Lynn Cashman has brought up, I am a little surprised to hear that the precinct hasn't heard about the use of motorized bicycles on the Esplanade. It's been a problem that our board has brought up time and time again, but if you're looking for specific times, I would highly recommend that you spend some time there at 84th Street and the waterfront on Saturdays and Sundays. It is frequent, and the number of really mopeds or motorcycles on the Esplanade is incredibly concerning. It's extremely narrow on parts of the Esplanade. There's no place to go besides the water or the FDR. So pedestrians being there, people with strollers, people who are trying to walk with their families, it's really dangerous. So please take a look on the weekends at 84th Street and the water. That's an easy access point there, and people can drive right there. So you can kind of see it. And then secondly, I just had a clarification question. Do you oversee just bicycle enforcement, or do you oversee traffic enforcement in our neighborhood?
We do traffic enforcement, vehicles, bicycles, mopeds, e-bikes.
Sure.
Everything that involves.
So then my other request is on 72nd Street at the very far end, as far as you can go. This is something that this committee has discussed many times, but and it's unsafe for everyone. It's unsafe for cars. It's unsafe for pedestrians. It's unsafe for bikers, frankly. But the number of double parked vehicles on the cul-de-sac at the end of 72nd Street is extremely dangerous. We've brought this up time and time again, but I just feel like it's worth mentioning. My husband bikes regularly, and I have forbid him to bike in that cul-de-sac, even though it's very close to our house, because it's so incredibly dangerous. The number of people who are double parked there just turns it into a parking lot, just on Mondays through Fridays. On the weekends, it's not a big deal, but on Mondays and through Fridays. So I would ask that you send somebody out there to get people to move along. It's a lot of people who are double parked waiting for their family members or friends to come out of the hospitals, I believe. But if you can get somebody out there, that would be really helpful.
Okay, we'll do. Yes, we do. We have that note. It is an issue because of the hospital, and also I believe there's also a parking lot or a parking space where people come off of the building, so which causes the double parking.
Yeah, I frankly don't think, I think that this is a Band-Aid. I think that having you go out there is frankly a Band-Aid, and we need to fix the larger problem. But since you're here, I have to ask that you send somebody out there to do a traffic enforcement there. Thank you.
That's a problem.
Thank you, Tricia. Russell Squire, our board chair, is here. Russell, you got a question?
Thank you. Yes, so I'm glad that Tricia brought up the Esplanade issue and others. I guess my question is, have you had any luck? I mean, one of the biggest concerns that I have heard from people with regard to bikes and pedestrian safety has to do with hit and run situations. And there are, stories that we've seen of people who've been injured in situations like that. My question is, have you had any luck in being able to track down bikers who have injured or killed pedestrians and I don't mean just you, I mean the department generally, bikers who have hurt people in hit and run situations? Have you actually been able to go out and find those people if they don't have any kind of identifying, for example, like a license plate on the bike? Has the department had any luck with that?
I don't have an exact answer to that, if they've been successful or not, but I know when something like that happens, detectives show up, they see the video. If there's video footage, we take a report, we take everything seriously. So it's like a follow-up. And it's everything that if it happens, if someone gets killed or someone gets seriously hurt, everything's on their investigation. And I know that we have like the greatest detectives in the world. I know they're out there seeing footage, trying to catch anybody, witnesses or anybody that's seen anything, so we can try to see who was at fault and try to catch these cyclists or these riders riding these dirt bikes.
Okay, well, I just to follow up on that briefly. I mean, I know Michelle had raised the point about licenses for folks, and I mean, to me, I think it's a sort of related issue, but I think the bigger issue in a way is license plates, essentially, if we're going to draw an analogy to cars. I mean, I think whether or not you were going to require bikers to have some kind of a license or something, I mean, I to me, that's less important than requiring some kind of registration where you would say essentially that, if a vehicle is going to be on the street, it needs to be identifiable in some way so that if something happens, people can do something about it. I think there are real practical challenges that are apparent to people where if somebody hits somebody and just rides away, the probability that you're ever going to be able to find that person seems pretty minimal, and it seems like a pretty easy fix, or not that it would fix it entirely potentially, but certainly would increase the likelihood of finding somebody if they actually had some kind of an identifier on their bike. And I don't think it's too much to ask for folks to have that if they're going to be on the street. And I would just add that I think that solves the problem that you sometimes hear about, where you have a lot of people using City Bike and tourists who use it and so on and so forth. And I think, and I think that's fine. And I can't imagine sort of like a licensing regime that you would have for those folks. But I think in the same way that every rental car has a license plate on it, if every City Bike had some kind of identifier like a license plate, that I think solves that issue also.
It's tough to do the registration for a bicycle because the state determines what should be a registered vehicle. It would have to be changed at the state level and will require a city bike. Like the Rebel scooters, they're motorized. They have license plates. As far as the city bikes, I'm not sure if they do have some kind of tracking on them and that you could track, this bike was at this location where maybe someone was hit. Maybe it'd be easier. I'm not sure if that's technology exists within the city bike, but as far as registering bicycles, it's a good idea. You would have to do it for so many people. I'm not sure it'd be possible. I don't know. I can't speak to that.
Yeah, well, and I take your comment, and I think in terms of, I have no doubt that an individual city bike is for this city bike itself, they're able to distinguish between those with fobs or what have you. But just in terms of somebody seeing someone go by, as it currently stands, they don't have it. And I'll just say, I mean, my comment was also for the committee. So your point about it being a state issue is well taken.
Well, with the city bikes, you could maybe number them. Maybe they have a specific number. And if a witness on the sidewalk sees the city bike hit somebody, they can write down that number, send it out in the 911 call, and we'd be on the lookout, or we know who rented that bike. That could be an option too.
Right. Yeah. Currently, there's nothing visible like that.
Right.
Okay. Thank you, Russell. Billy Freeland, next.
I first want to thank the 19th Precinct for joining us today. Kind of a comment and then a question. The comment is there's plenty of research on licensing and putting license plates on bicycles. In fact, that it would typically reduce bike ridership in our city, which I don't think is our goal. So for traditional bikes and even pedal assist e-bikes, I think it would be a mistake. And I would urge you to, before pushing for that in any way, to consider that research. As far as motorized scooters go, I think that's in a somewhat different category. And this is my question. There's enforcement and there's education. How many officers do you put in our precinct to do enforcement? And does that take away from resources that could be spent on education? And then finally, are you reaching out to, say, restaurants to educate and inform about their responsibilities and their workers' responsibilities with respect to how they ride on the road? What does that education typically look like?
Okay, so there's 6 guys in our traffic unit, and the way we decide to enforce any type of infraction, if we go with mopeds or e-scooters, we first educate the public about it. So we take a week to education. So my 6 guys will go out, we educate the public, the community, and then the next week we enforce it. I know some may say we should give more education, maybe 2 weeks or 3 weeks, but we feel 1 week is enough. We educate the whole community, and people who are coming from Queens, Brooklyn, they will see what we're giving out. There will be flyers saying you have to have these these mopeds, e-scooters that fly over 30 miles per hour to be registered. And then after that, we enforce it. We enforce these infractions, and some of them will decide to disobey the infractions and disobey, even not care about the education. We'll go in and issue them a summons. And as far as the restaurants, we've been to these restaurants who have deliveries and uses e-bikes, and we tell them, listen, your delivery guy has to obey the rules of the traffic rules. If not, we're going to enforce it. And I know it's tough, especially after the pandemic. These restaurants are opening up, their business is coming up, and to issue the delivery guy a summons it's going to be hard for the delivery guy and for the restaurant. So we try to first educate the restaurants, and we have been educating the restaurants and telling the restaurants to tell their delivery guys to obey the traffic rules in the city.
Sergeant, let me ask you a question here. You said there were you have 6 people in the unit, and does that cover
yes.
Your traffic enforcement, yes. Right. Does that cover the whole Upper East Side?
Yes. Yes, it does. And it seems small, but we do our best.
I'm sure you do your best, but that's for the whole, that's for our whole, it affect our whole area here, basically.
Yes, yes.
Right. Okay.
And is someone on duty all hours of the day, or are there certain hours? I know you don't want to say.
So we have 2 guys that work in the morning from 7 o'clock till 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Then we have guys that come midday, and then we have guys that come in the afternoon. And those afternoon guys work until 11 o'clock at night.
But overnight, there's no coverage necessarily.
Overnight, there's no real coverage unless we're doing some kind of initiative for speeding, or there was before the pandemic, we did the sanitation trucks that were driving crazy. So we'll do that every once in a while.
Is there any opportunity to get more staffing? Do you know? I mean, realistically, it's hard. Obviously, you're not in charge of that, but I mean, what's your sense?
It's tough because we have so many different units now within the precinct. We have a public safety team, we have the NCOs, we have traffic, domestic violence, and then we have patrol. And we have a shortage of cops, unfortunately. When I first came to this precinct, there was 250 cops. That's a lot of police officers. Now I think we're down to less than 200.
Yeah, that's a big drop in.
With retirements, people, retiring with 20 years or plus, people leaving for other departments, it's tough to, have all that personnel.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. It's very useful information. Thank you. Next, Elizabeth Ashby. Can we unmute Elizabeth?
Yes, I live at the corner of the 19th precinct, the 23rd precinct, and the Central Park precinct. I go out every day with walking a dog, and I've been counting how many infractions illegal bicyclists, and I'm talking mostly about pedal bicycles. In 20 minutes, I average between 12 and 15 illegally ridden bicycles, running through the red light, running the wrong way, running on the sidewalk. Enforcement around me seems not to exist, but I think that the problem here is so severe, and mine is not an unusual area. I think that the legislation that's, I think, Simca Felder in the state is proposing, I think we should work with him and support this sort of thing. And I think licensing a bicycle is not eccentric. I've lived on the other side of the Atlantic. I visited China. I've seen everywhere they have bicycles, and it might, sort of focus the mind of these scofflaws. If they had a license on their bicycle, they would know they were recognizable. But I think if you want to know how serious the problem is, I'll show you. Come around me. And I hope we will work with the state to develop some laws. And maybe you might encourage the park enforcement, or not a very effective lot, to enforce the bicycle laws in the park.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Valerie,
Valerie Mason, Community Development.
Thanks. I just want to say that we're asking the police department to do something that by its numbers is just impossible to accomplish. We're talking about 6 police officers for an area that is incredibly large just within our precinct. And if we know what, and just knowing those numbers, you know how insurmountable this is, given, this is just another example of the city basically throwing everything onto the police department. When they decided to put in the bike lanes and do all this stuff, and our hopefully soon to be gone mayor decided that e-bikes were a great thing to have running all around, there was no thought to how this was going to be enforced. So I very much empathize with these poor officers who have this incredible burden, which it can't practically be possible to really enforce properly. I do want to say, I just want to understand, there are a lot of police traffic, I don't even know what you call them, who write the tickets for parked cars. None of those officers are involved in this traffic enforcement that you're talking about, right, Sergeant Palagucci? I mean, I think either the Department of Transportation or that arm of the police department has to be empowered to start enforcing some of these laws. The other question I have is, does anybody ask the police department what they are seeing in terms of, what you're seeing in terms of, you talked about these ATV vehicles and your inability to chase them or whatever. Does anybody ask you, like, what law you can't, there's nothing you can enforce there, it sounds to me, because you can't chase them, you can't go after them. So does anybody ask you what you need in order to rectify this problem? Because we've been hearing about this Sunday 5 o'clock problem for years and years, and I live on 72nd and 2nd, and it just screams of lawlessness that this is allowed to happen on a regular basis. And so if we can be supportive in terms of getting the legislators to do something, then I think we need to work together to do something. Because it just looks so badly that there's a problem out there that basically everyone is just tossing their hands up in the air and saying there's nothing we can do about it, because everybody can hear that. And so then instead of having 50 of those vehicles on Sunday, there are 100 of them, because they know that nobody's going to do anything. How can we help you solve this problem?
So basically what this community board, this people who live in the 19th precinct, call us and have us come. That's what you guys can do. But as far as the ATVs, they're not here. They don't store them here. They ride through here. We need, it's not our precinct, but wherever these bikes, these dirt bikes, these ATVs are being stored, we need the community to work with the police to tell them, oh yeah, they store 5 of those ATVs in that garage. Those dirt bikes, we see them come out of that building. That way the officers of that precinct, wherever they're being stored, can take them. They're not registered. Those things are not supposed to be ridden on. We can take those, we can seize them, and we get them off the street.
But let me ask you a different way. Is that something that the precinct or the city should be offering rewards to turn in people?
I mean, it's tough. It's going to be tough. I think it's got to be concerned citizens that are going to have to step up and say, we're sick of seeing these guys doing donuts in our neighborhoods. We're sick of them possibly hurting our children or the elderly people that are walking around. That's what you're going to need. I don't know if tips for cash is actually going to work.
Well, has anybody ever tried that?
Honestly, I can't say that I know that answer.
I mean, because now they're coming through Central Park. If you're in Central Park near 5th Avenue on Sundays at 6 o'clock, and all through the pandemic, coming down Fifth Avenue, coming down the sidewalks of Fifth Avenue, coming down the street of Fifth Avenue, not stopping for any streetlights whatsoever. I mean, you guys seem to think that there was some kind of hiatus. I can tell you there was absolutely no hiatus. In fact, it was even worse.
Listen, Valerie, thanks. At this point, I think we have a number of other presentations, so I'm going to call a halt.
Chuck,
to this.
the only thing I would say is, can we maybe get some of the state legislators to either look at the tape of this evening and
Sure.
then maybe come back and have maybe a discussion about legislation? Because I think Russell's points about at least numbering the city bikes as a start, even a pilot program, to see if we can get some action, I think is a good idea. That's
Can
all.
I actually respond to that? Because I just confirmed what my suspicion was. And in fact, all city bikes are numbered, and the number is visible on the bikes. They are on the frame near the back wheel. And any city bike can be tracked. In fact, all the data is open source data, and I've looked into it just to do my own analysis on city bike in the past. So you can literally track any bike and know where it is at any given point. So if there was ever an instance where a bike is captured doing something illegal or something worse, it can be tracked with that ID as long as it's available. And I'm sure the folks managing City Bike would be able to go back and link that to the user.
Right,
So,
but it's one thing, Craig, sorry, it's one thing to have it on the frame. It's another thing to have it at the back of the seat so somebody could see it. You can't see the frame as it's going by you, but you could capture that number if in fact there was something similar to looking at a license on the back of a seat. I think it's something to really look at.
Well, what we could try to do is, I think there's issues that involve state legislation, and we can have maybe some of our, our state senator and assembly members come and talk to us, and we can chat with them about this.
Yeah.
Because I think there are a lot of issues involved in some of the state legislation, and some of it may be possible, some of it may not be possible, but it would be worth a chat.
Chuck, can I just ask one quick question?
Yeah, of course.
And that is, can any officer, in essence, if they see a cyclist or someone on an e-bike that shouldn't be in a bike lane, that is in a bike lane, or being reckless, can they issue a summons and stop someone? Or
Absolutely, yes.
And is there any way to encourage that, as opposed, if it sounds like it's unlikely that we're going to be able to have more your unit expanded, is there any initiative that could be implemented that would make it a precinct-wide goal to try to address the most egregious behavior? Or is it already being done just as part of your standard operating procedures?
It's already being done. Patrol, what happens with patrol is it gets busy in the 19th, and they go to different jobs, and sometimes it's hard for them to address those conditions. But they're aware if they see someone on the bike lane, either it's an e-bike, bicyclist, moped, riding recklessly, but the mopeds are not allowed. So if they see it, they know for some reason it sees it. And if they see a bicyclist riding reckless on the bike lane, they know to enforce it too.
Okay, listen, we really appreciate you folks from the Traffic Enforcement Unit, and appreciate the work you're doing, and appreciate you coming here and answering our questions. And this is a subject I'm sure we'll be getting back to. So again, we appreciate your work, and thanks for coming tonight, I should say. Thank
you for having us.
Thank you. We're going to have to move along because we actually have a number of other issues that we need to get to. And our next issue is the DOT presentation of the streets master plan. Do we have, Will, do we have folks here from DOT to do this?
No, Colleen's here. Colleen, who from your team is here to
Hey, Will, it's Colleen from City Department of Transportation. So this is not actually a presentation, but it's more of an update. The presentation is actually on our DOT website, so I can give a brief update about this and field some questions and take back to my colleagues. So whenever you're ready, let me know.
Okay, well, why don't we, Colleen, why don't we hold that one then? And let's go to the next item, which is a request for a 1-hour commercial loading zone regulation in front of Morton Williams Supermarket at 1066 3rd Avenue. Is there someone?
Yeah, that's Avi Keener.
Is that, oh, Avi Keener's here?
Yes.
Okay. Why don't, if we can unmute Avi and have him chat about this.
Yeah, hi everyone. Let me go to my computer because I was on my iPhone. Let me just sign in from my computer so I can share a picture with you. 1 second, please.
Okay.
My son called me, said dinner, waiting for dinner. So I thought there'd be like the DOT presentation before I went. Hold on, I'm connecting now to my computer. 1 second, please.
Recording in progress.
Okay, can you unmute me on the other one, please?
We can hear you. We can hear you.
Okay,
Yeah.
let me
go ahead.
This one. There we go. Modern technology. We've all learned how to deal with Zoom. First of all, let me introduce myself. My name is Avi Keener. I'm one of the owners of Morton Williams Supermarkets. We have 16 supermarkets. Most of them are in Manhattan. We have a number of them on the Upper East Side. We've been in the city. We're family owned and operated. We live in New York, work in New York. We're locals, educated in New York, and we love New York, and we will never leave New York. During the COVID, we obviously worked very hard to make sure supplies and provisions came into the city. We communicated with our customers and try to reassure them and make sure that the product was there. And so this issue with the parking is it's kind of linked to the next thing that's on your agenda also, which is the Amazon Fresh Direct situation. So an average supermarket like ours, this one is on 63rd and 3rd, an average supermarket gets maybe 40 to 50 deliveries a day. Now, while that sounds like a lot, most of them are small vendors, like the guys delivering the muffins or the bread or the bananas, the produce, et cetera. And then we get large trucks as well for grocery, frozen dairy. We have meat vendors, seafood vendors, et cetera. And generally we come to the community boards, and community boards help us get loading zones in front of our stores so we can get these deliveries in. And that's always worked very well. But what's happened recently, and the biggest violator is Amazon, which is really, they're really out of control. What they do is they take advantage of the cities, of the loading, unloading areas. And what they do is they go and they use it for warehousing. So in other words, a large truck will come into the city from wherever the warehouse is, certainly not in Manhattan. A large truck comes in, parks in front of our store all day long for 8 hours. This truck will be parked outside our store, filled with Amazon deliveries, and they'll have a dozen workers coming to the truck and just unloading the truck all day long, making deliveries in the neighborhood. So meanwhile, we, the supermarket, are unable to efficiently get deliveries. And when you think about 40 to 50 deliveries a day, these trucks that are making vans and trucks, they're not all trucks, some of them are small vans, they're all forced to double park. So it creates this like massive traffic jam situation due only to Amazon, because of Amazon. And a lot of these, the small guys especially, these are like immigrant vendors. They come to park, they have to double park. The NYPD, who I obviously love, tickets them. And many vendors, smaller vendors, decide, you know what, I can't afford to do business in Manhattan because not only the traffic, but then I get tickets. So what we are seeking is for the loading zone to have a 1 hour limit. If you're coming to do loading and unloading, you should be able to load and unload in 1 hour, right? If it's taking you more than 1 hour to load and unload a truck, it means you're not loading and unloading. You're using it as a warehouse. You're warehousing on a New York City, causing congestion and double parking all day long. And that's it. That's what we're seeking. That is what we're seeking.
We'll have some people obviously who want to talk about this or questions or comments, but I'll make one comment here, Avi, and we've had this issue before. I don't think it's an issue for us to say, yeah, let's do 1 hour zone, but it may not be a panacea because as you probably know, it's an issue of enforcement. And we've had this before. The police say, look, you have to be able to measure whether someone's been there an hour, and you're not going to get any member of law enforcement to, stay there's an hour or come back, an hour later to do it. And that's going to be the issue. So it may not be the kind of relief, unfortunately, that you think it might be. So that's a caveat that I think we ought to keep in mind. And I don't know whether or not there's something better we can come up with, and maybe we'll ask Colleen from DOT whether they have any other thoughts and suggestions, or maybe Craig, who's my co-chair, who's a traffic consultant, he might have some good ideas. But we have a number of people I know who want to.
Well, Chuck, I was just going to actually suggest we hear from Colleen first and see if she has any feedback. I agree with you entirely that I'm not sure that it's a remedy if you limit it to an hour, and then just like anyone who inhabits a metered space, they'll just come and pay for another hour without any threat of being towed or anything. So I guess the question is, what measures can we implement that would restrict vehicles from being able to truly stay for more than an hour?
And we are trying to do so. Our next issue is about the e-commerce truck unloading issue that you talked about, which is a major issue for a lot of people, and especially stores like you. And that may be some way to help. But as Colleen, maybe you can comment on that. Do you see these 1 hour kinds of commercial loading zones working in terms of keeping people from staying there for quite a while? Can we unmute Colleen?
Colleen, unmute whenever you're ready.
All right, maybe Colleen stepped away.
Yeah, she may have
Here she is.
I'm here. I'm sorry. I was just nibbling on a snack. I'm sorry.
That'll teach you.
Play before the meeting.
So, Colleen, I don't know whether you heard, the question was whether these 1 hour, limited commercial parking zones are really helpful in trying to keep the Amazons of the world from staying there for long periods of time, or if there's something else that might work better.
This all goes back to enforcement. We have our commercial parking regulations that allow for 2 hour muni meter commercial parking, and Amazon, they stay there for longer than 2 hours, and they pretty much get away with it, but other than that, we don't have a 1 hour commercial parking where this would be, granted for, because we found that commercial parking usually happens, 2 hours or more, because what happens, the longer you stay, the more you would have to pay the meter. But we have eliminated the 1 hour commercial parking, because right now it's mostly 2 hours and up. So
There's no such thing then as as a 1 hour commercial parking zone at this point?
we are trying to do away with that, because we find that commercial vehicles tend to stay longer than expected. In some cases, you can park in a commercial vehicle could park in a no parking or no standing regulation. But again, it's for 15 minutes and it has to be expeditious for pickup and drop off.
So are you talking here, what about neighborhood loading zones? Or is there any discussion of a commercial version of a neighborhood loading zone? Or I guess it would incorporate that as it was presented last month.
So neighborhood loading zone serves the purpose for, a taxi that wants to discharge a passenger in the area or lives in a particular building. It also serves the purpose for move-ins, move-outs. I mean, if there is a neighborhood loading zone within the area, or if the community was asking us to look at having one there, we'll be more than happy to do so. But keep in mind, what Amazon is doing, they will continue to even do that in the neighborhood loading zone where other commercial vehicles may not be able to utilize that curbside space.
Well, let me ask Avi a question here. If you had a 1 hour zone, because we could ask for a 1 hour zone. I mean, what I hear colleagues saying, they're trying to do away with them, but maybe we could ask for one and get one there. Would that suit your purposes if you actually had a 1 hour zone?
Yeah, I mean, it would, but let me, yes, it would. But let me respond to Colleen, and I really appreciate her perspectives, because she's a professional, in this subject. Colleen, we're talking about a loading zone that's directly in front of a supermarket on the Upper East Side on 63rd and 3rd. It is not a muni meter situation. It's not a situation where you could keep feeding the meter. The intent, and you could correct me if I'm wrong, Colleen, the intent is to expeditiously load and unload and get out of the way so the next truck can come in. But what Amazon is doing, they're not doing expeditious anything. They are literally getting there, parking there, and staying there all day long and using it as a warehouse.
And again, and Avi, what they're doing is absolutely wrong, and it's an enforcement issue. And the committee board 7-8 is not the only one that's also experiencing this. CB7 is also having issues where Amazon is utilizing the curbside space all day, and what they're doing, they're having their packages on the sidewalk. This is a bad practice for Amazon. And what Community Board 7 has done is that they have reached out to Amazon and to the director of the area and let them know that, hey, this is bad practice. You can't do this. You can't get away with this. I'll be honest with you, it goes back to enforcement. We can do as much as we can to change a sign and regulation, but Amazon is going to choose to be there all day. But
right now, Colleen, what happens now is, we go to a local precinct. We have very good relationships. We go to a local precinct and they tell us the problem is that the law with those signs, it says no loading, no staying except loading and unloading. They're saying, yeah, they're loading and unloading. They're just doing it all day long. In other words, there's no restrictions. So in other words, they're saying, look, if the sign said 1 hour limit or do it expeditiously, then they have something they can enforce. But right now, they say there's literally nothing they can enforce. And we've got Richard Lipsky here also. I've asked Richard, can you please contact the DOT, get me a letter on DOT letterhead that says loading and unloading zones are meant for expeditious loading and unloading and not warehousing. And we have not been able to get a letter like that from DOT, because if we could get a letter like that from DOT, we could then go show it to the police And they'd say, oh yeah, now we have something to enforce, but there's literally nothing for them to enforce.
So we would not issue a letter like that because NYPD knows the loading and unloading is meant to be expeditious. That's a given.
But they don't, Colleen, they don't. They do not.
They do. And this.
I've been in
this has been a
business.
conversation.
I promise you, Colleen, I promise you, they don't know that. If you give me a letter that says that, then we don't need the 1 hour zone. I could just give them that letter and say, here's the letter.
We would not issue a letter like that. Sorry, we would not.
So then we need the 1 hour zone. Then we need a 1 hour zone. If there's no letter, then I need a 1 hour zone that says it on the sign that I could show the police precinct, look, they've been here for 3 hours warehousing in a 1 hour zone.
Yeah, that would, look, it's better than nothing. I agree. And if you had a 1 hour, that would discourage some people from they'd look somewhere else. Maybe that might be harder to get away with or something, easier to get away with. Sorry. So let's we have some people.
One quick question, just so we are all on the same page here. Colleen, is part of the issue in your mind the fact that this is not a metered commercial loading zone? It's, and I was just there, so I saw it myself. It's a 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. commercial loading without any restrictions at all. And again, I understand DOT is trying to do away with 1 hour commercial loading zones, but is there a distinction if it were a metered loading zone versus not in terms of what you would be able to do and being able to have limits in place?
So if it's a commercial metered zone, there would be limits in place. You're absolutely right, Craig. Because with the metered commercial loading, it allows you 2 hours metered commercial parking at a particular location.
And with the standard loading,
with the standard, you can just be, and again, with the standard, what that commercial vehicle or what that driver is going to do, they would utilize that space all day. They would be there all day because they feel like they don't need to move. No one's watching them. There's not a traffic enforcement agent who's coming around to say, hey, you've been here already for 3 hours. I think it's time that we issue you a summons.
okay. Obviously, and then I'll let others speak. Just with that being stated, would you be amenable if this were to, if we were to make a recommendation that involved this becoming a metered commercial loading zone in order to get it, if DOT doesn't have another option in their inventory of signs?
Yeah, the meters would not work for us because what Amazon would do is just feed the meters all day long.
I don't think you need the meters. It's if you got a like a 1 hour zone, it's the same, to my mind, it's the same thing. The police could, if there was somebody walking around the neighborhood and they came back in a few hours and they saw the same Amazon truck there that was there 3 hours before, they would know that they overstayed they're illegal.
Right, I mean, Chuck, right now, no one's doing that, so.
No, I understand, but there's no limit now. That's the point. That's Avi's point. They're loading and unloading, and there's no limit to how long they can stay there. It just says loading and unloading. And so they, anyway, let's have a little discussion first, and then we can try to see if we can come up with a resolution. And Judy Schneider, I see from the public, has asked to be heard. She had asked, she had her hand up before. Can we unmute Judy?
Hi, all. I'm going to go in a little different direction. Avi, we're glad to meet you. I'm in your neighborhood at 63rd Street. And you keep using the word expeditiously. And I love to hear that because you unload and take in all your goods in a public plaza and you take space in that plaza, which is totally illegal, which would be fine if you loaded and unloaded expeditiously. Yet we have that whole western walkway of the plaza is filled with your goods that are not unloaded expeditiously from the plaza. And that's totally illegal. It's not allowed in a POPs, in a public plaza. That's kind of for transportation. That's partly your issue. You also have large garbage cans parked out in front of the store. I don't know if they need to be get approval to park those there. But we've tried to speak with your manager on a number of occasions and haven't gotten very far. So we're very happy to have the owner here, and hopefully you can tell us what you can do to make the front of your store look better and to unload expeditiously, to use your phrase, and get the goods into the store instead of leaving it standing out all day in the plaza.
Okay, well, nice to meet you, Judith. Well, I agree with you. We should do everything expeditiously because it makes sense, not only for the community, it makes sense for us. It costs a lot more money to not do things expeditiously, right? We want to get the goods in quickly. And you know, and we'd rather have the people inside the store than outside the store. What happens here is the loading, you know, the loading area for the store is on the side of the building. And the only way to get into the delivery entrance is via the plaza. There's no other way, you know, to get the goods into the building. But having said that, I agree that it should be done expeditiously, and it's supposed to be kept as close as it can to the wall of the building. It should not be going into the plaza. If it is going into the plaza, I'd appreciate if you could send me photos and let me know. You know, Avi Kaner at mortonwilliams.com. Just send me photos, and I promise you we'll take care of it right away. Regarding the garbage cans outside, I really have no idea what those are. We do not park any garbage containers outside. At the end of the day, you know, we do bring garbage out to get picked up, but you know, as every single business in New York does, but we do not park any. It's not. I don't believe it's ours. Next time you see it, please take a photo and send it to me. And if that's the case, I assure you, we will take care of it.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think now we have a couple of other members of the public. Andrew Fine that wanted to speak on this. Can we unmute Andrew?
Hello. I'm sorry. Let me turn off the light here so you can actually see me. I'm sorry. I had a number of points to make on the last topic of conversation after I waited an hour for my hand to be unraised. So I'm sorry that I was excluded from that conversation on e-bikes.
Do you have something to say on this conversation?
Policing. Yes, I do actually. Thank you. Okay. That's not correct. Sorry. The Amazon Fresh Direct issue is not an issue of 1 hour loading and unloading. Fresh Direct, Amazon, unload and load as if our streets are a warehouse in the first, second, and third lane of traffic. It's a whack-a-mole proposition. They constantly move along. They move from 84th to 85th, 86th to 87th, up and down 3rd Avenue, and all around the neighborhood. The bottom line is that they are using our streets as a mobile warehouse, and that's wrong. They should have an actual warehouse. They actually have a Whole Foods on 87th Street and 3rd Avenue. Their reasoning was that they were gonna unload and have, rather than drive around the neighborhood and pollute the neighborhood with their trucks, they were gonna unload and have people come, and I forgot what the phrase is, but essentially take rolling carts and move around the neighborhood and do it from one source. The reality is that there are dozens of cars that pull up on the Amazon, the Fresh Directs, and they're little micro Instacarts and so on and so forth. So instead of having one truck distributing throughout the neighborhood, potentially clogging up traffic, you literally have dozens of cars, small timers, coming, blocking 3rd Avenue, blocking Lexington Avenue, blocking 2nd Avenue. And this is a problem that must be addressed. We can't have this. It cannot be a mobile. We cannot be a mobile warehouse. But on the other point, I do wish that you would engage the public and allow us to speak out. Don't unraise our hands, because I know that a couple of members of the East 86th Street Association have tried to speak out earlier this evening, and we're shut out. And we're shut out after waiting for an hour at a time to pose a question or to pose a comment. So in the future, we'd really love to have our opportunity to speak out on issues like ATVs, e-bikes on sidewalks, the amount of policing in the neighborhood. And we do support the police, and we want them to be able to enforce the law. Thank you very much.
Well, I'll just make a comment, since I've been a co-chair of this committee for many years, and people who've been on this committee and have appeared before this committee know that everyone gets a chance to speak out. You already spoke once on the subject. You had your hand up twice. We were over an hour into a subject with a long agenda, and things have to move along. So no one gets shut out. So I take exception to that personally, because I look to make sure that people get to speak, and people generally speak and be able to say their mind on just about any subject, as long as they stay on the subject.
Well,
So,
if you review the videotape,
I don't have to review it. I know exactly what
the
happened.
association was summarily cut off, and you did not return to her. And I tried to respond.
I didn't. I'm returning to her because when we get to the subject, and she has her hand up, and she's going to be recognized now. So
Good.
don't.
I hope
thank
so.
you. I appreciate your
Thank you
thoughts.
very much. And at a future date, I'd love to make a comment on e-bikes, ATVs, and the amount of policing in the neighborhood. Thank you.
We haven't heard the last of that subject. I'm sure you'll get the opportunity. Okay, let's go to Aura Masarski. I think she wanted to comment on this subject, and happy to have her comment. Can we unmute Aura?
Yeah. Hi, I thank you for calling on me. I would like to say how much I appreciate Avi's problems and his desire to do the right thing by his customers. I really support local merchants, and I think we all need to. And the challenges posed by Amazon and Fresh Direct are a direct threat to his business. At any given time, now or 3 o'clock in the morning, you can see the Fresh Direct trucks on 3rd Avenue and 85th Street. They're there. Rain, shine, whatever. Amazon trucks, of course. Today, I was walking on 2nd Avenue and 85th Street, and Fresh Direct has their truck parked there the entire time. And like Andrew said, the carts coming back and forth. Now, 2nd Avenue in the 80s has a lot of restaurants. It's one of our resources, and we're all saying we want to support our restaurants. Well, there was a food delivery truck, a restaurant supply truck, that was double parked. And of course, Fresh Direct was blocking the bicycle path, the bike lane, and the food delivery was way out into the street. And I'm thinking, thank God I don't ride a bike. I was on the other side of the avenue. And this lady was trying to cross 85th Street from the east to the west sides of 2nd Avenue, and she could not see where she was going. There were bikes and so forth. The entire intersection was closed. My concern, again, is Fresh Direct and Amazon using city streets for free. And yes, before COVID, I spoke to their community affairs person and Fresh Direct, and he was shocked that this was going on. And we'll look into it. And of course, nothing ever happened. I think Avi is completely right. I think there needs to be a regulated 1 hour loading, unloading, and that's it. That maybe it has to go to city council or whatever, but we certainly should recommend it. And it should be in front of certainly supermarkets and also in places where restaurants need to get deliveries, like Second Avenue in the 90s, 80s, and 70s. That's a no-brainer. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks. Okay. We have some board members who want to comment. Michelle Birnbaum first. Maybe Michelle.
Yes, thank you. I think what Avi is asking is completely reasonable. And whether or not DOT has such a sign or is fading out such a sign, I think we need to ask DOT to listen to the community and members of the community and allow us to avail ourselves of their services. They are often, very helpful to us. And I don't want to see this supermarket get caught in sort of the crosshairs of some kind of change that's happening at the DOT. I don't think the paid hour would do any good. That's usually a 3-hour commercial window. And what happens then is Morton Williams supermarket, they have continuous trucks coming in and out. So for them, they are going to have to be paying for this, even though they are pulling in and out, and it still doesn't preclude Amazon for staying there for 3 hours and nobody being around to see whether or not they're being compliant. Now, when you have a 1-hour window, in most cities, what you have is marking tires. And I recognize that for that, you need manpower, you need a workforce. Certainly the people who are the meter people could certainly function as that kind of person. A truck pulls in, you mark the tires, you don't see the mark, or you still see the mark after an hour and you know that they're being non-compliant. There is a way to do this. I don't know if it's legal for the supermarket to mark the tire and have enforcement come back to see that they noted the hour and that the tire, the mark is still visible. But this is a very reasonable request, and I certainly think we should try it and see if it solves the problem. I want to make one other statement about the September agenda in light of what's been raised tonight. I would like you to please notice the public and let's put licensing on a bicycle. And I want Russell to understand from me that all the years that I've asked for that, I've always meant putting a license plate on a bicycle. That's what I've meant. I think we should put that on the September agenda. We notice the public. Let's get some feedback on it. And I think we ought to call Amazon, Fresh Direct, and whoever else we think are these violators into the September meeting. And hopefully they'll respond to us, and let's alert them to what we think is going on. As for tonight, now that I spoke, I can't make a resolution, but I hope we vote to give Avi and the supermarket some release. They're a valued member of the community. Thank you.
I just want to respond, Michelle. We'll take that under advisement, but we do have a backlog of items. I don't want to commit to September yet. We shall see that, we'll definitely add this to our list.
Yeah, our September agenda, we'll have to check that, but we'll deal with it.
And then I was going to say, Colleen, I saw raised her hand as I was speaking, so maybe she could just.
I was just going to say, I second Michelle's recommendation to invite, the folks from Whole Foods and from Amazon who are the bad actors, and have them come to the community board, because this is an issue that is, occurring in other community boards. And I think that's the first step as well.
Yeah. Thank you, Colleen. We have another public member that I see was raised, Lloyd Zuckerberg. Can we unmute Mr. Zuckerberg? We couldn't hear you yet.
Thank you. I tuned in during Mr. Avi Kenner's presentation. I have comments about Fresh Direct trucks parked in my neighborhood. Should I hold on until the next agenda item, or is now the time to make a comment?
Well, you could make that now, because we're going to sort of roll into the next one. I don't know, but what's going on with that next agenda item?
They are related, and I believe, unless Will, you know differently, I don't believe we have anyone from Fresh Direct or Amazon at this meeting. In which case,
no.
Okay, I just want my comment. I'm a resident of 190 72nd Street. the building that is on Third Avenue and 72nd, which runs the full block on the western side of Third Avenue. Fresh Direct has taken to parking regularly, almost daily, on Third Avenue in what's a taxi stand and a hydrant. They are sometimes partially blocking the crosswalk. This is a complex issue. I don't really know what the solution is, but I do know this. I do know that DOT, for example, put in a 24-hour bus lane on Lexington Avenue, the result of which has reduced the traffic flow, obviously, the available lanes for cars, but they didn't simultaneously seem to make any concerted effort to reduce double parking, because now the trucks all park on the other side of the road. And so sometimes you only have one lane. I guess other cities have probably figured this out better. I recently had the opportunity to spend a few weeks in London, which is a city with smaller streets and generally better traffic flow. I think it's because one agency, Transport for London, deals with everything having to do with the movement of people, goods, and underground infrastructure on the streets. This is an enforcement issue. And if this is truly the greatest city in the world, we have to do better. It's unconscionable that I come home almost every night and I see Fresh Direct trucks monopolizing the sidewalk. Like other people have said, they're using city streets as a warehouse. And if this becomes a priority of the administration that governs this city, then something will have to get done. And DOT is a problem because the police enforce DOT regulations, but there's sometimes a lack of coordination. But I appreciate the opportunity of you addressing this. It is a real serious problem. The city of New York is giving away its curb space to these services, which are valuable services to a lot of New Yorkers, but there's something out of whack with the system. And I hope that these meetings will lead the city, perhaps the next mayoral administration, to take this more seriously and look around the world and see who's doing this better and how do we bring these better ideas to New York. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, now let's go to, if one of our board members wants to make a resolution and then second it, they can still speak, but Koss is next. If he doesn't want to, then Valerie's after Koss.
No, I was going to suggest tabling this, sending the Morton Williams and DOT and the NYPD get together and come up with something amenable to everybody, because we're going to be here for the next 2 or 3 hours coming up with suggestions, recommendations from other cities all over the world. We're going to be here spinning our wheels.
All right, well, thanks, Koss. I don't know that that's the solution, but Valerie, why don't you go ahead? You're next.
Well, thanks. I want to make a motion that we support Morton Williams and with their request for a 1 hour limit on loading and unloading.
Commercial loading zone 1 hour limit, right?
Right. And I just want to speak to it.
Is there a second? First, is there a second to that? Okay, I see seconds.
Rita,
okay, Rebecca, yeah. Michelle, Rita, etc.
I
So
just
go ahead. Go ahead,
I just want to say that a couple of years ago, I sat down with Avi and Richard, Mr. Sloan, and as a representative of the East 72nd Street Neighborhood Association. And they were very good neighbors, worried about how they were going to put their supermarket online and make sure that they weren't going to disrupt the neighborhood. I understand what Judy's saying, and I'm sure Avi is heartfelt in addressing any issues. For the most part, when you pass Morton Williams on 3rd Avenue and 72nd Street, you have unobstructed walking, and they're doing the best they can. And they have done a great job for the community. I want to thank Avi and all his employees for coming every day through COVID and making sure that the grocery stores were stocked with everything that we needed. Their employees came every day, and they are the most pleasant and dedicated workers that I've encountered in a long time. And I just want to thank him for that. And I think we should support our local businesses. And this is not a really big ask, and anything we can do. I mean, Avi can have somebody stand out there with a camera and time the 1 hour that they're there. And at least if somebody doesn't even enforce it, he has the evidence to go forward. So I think it's a small step in supporting one of our neighbors, and I would urge everyone to vote in favor of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Russell Squire, next. Can we unmute Russell?
Thanks. So I had some questions for Colleen and also for Avi, but I just wanted to confirm, it sounds like my understanding is the 1 hour, whether or not you have 1 hour loading zones, that's an administrative thing, right? That doesn't require a law change, and maybe Chuck and Craig know the answer to this.
No, it doesn't require a law change. No.
It's just something that the DOT can do itself.
And it's also a question of,
It doesn't require a law change. No.
or can I ask though, would parking agents, enforcement agents be able to mark vehicles that if there are no meters to measure the amount of time of vehicles parked in the space?
That I can't comment on because I don't know what legally they can or cannot do. And I can't speak on behalf of traffic enforcement.
Elsewhere in the city, right?
But they don't, look, even if they don't mark them, what Valerie said, you get somebody out there, you take a picture with the time, you can take a picture and have the time you took the picture. You come out an hour later and it's the same car, and you take another picture with the time, and you've got your evidence that you can show them.
Yeah, I mean, I suspect that that's something that Morton and Williams can do. I mean, Avi can
Right, that's what I'm saying.
I'm wrong, but yeah, that seems to me like something they.
But let me ask you guys, is there any way I could share a picture with you? Can I share my screen? Is that
Will, can that be done?
Yes, you can share it right now.
Okay, why don't you go ahead, Avi, share your
Okay,
screen.
let me see if I can do this. 1 second. Let me see how to do this. Okay, I'll share my desktop. That's the easiest way, I think. Okay, you should have on my desktop.
Yeah,
right?
You're sharing, okay.
Okay, that is not the picture. This is the picture. That's my grandfather's Kiddush cup, by the way.
Oh, very nice.
Right, yes, it is.
It's like over 100 years old, like great grandfather. Okay, this here, as you could see, this is our supermarket on 63rd and 3rd. This is an Amazon truck parking all day. Here is one of our truck, like, I don't know what it is. It might be a meat delivery, maybe Nebraska land, trying to make a meat delivery. They cannot park in front of the store. They're forced to double park because this Amazon truck is literally there all day long. And what these people do is they then, when they're done after a few hours, they have a second truck pulling up and waiting to take over that spot. That's 81st and 1st. But as you could see, this is the problem. And you look at us over here, just to give you an idea, you'll think we're crazy. And sometimes I think we are. We pay $2 million a year rent for this store. And are you ready for this? You're going to fall off your chairs now. We pay $2 million a year rent for this store. We pay New York City $1 million a year in property taxes and commercial rent tax. It's not the landlord that pays it, it's the tenant that pays it. So here we're paying New York City $1 million for the privilege of being here to operate a store, yet we can't get deliveries, and the trucks are forced to double park, triple park, and it's really bad for the neighborhood also. It creates congestion, and and that's basically it. I think a picture speaks 1,000 words.
Yes, thank you.
So my other questions that I had for Colleen, and then I want to follow up on it with Avi, is just I want to make sure I understand what the sort of options are. So it sounded like there was a reference to a 2-hour loading zone. Is that something, is there a version of a 2-hour loading zone that doesn't include meters, or is the only version of a 2-hour zone something that's a metered zone? Is there a non-metered?
So the city is leaning towards the commercial meter parking regulation, which, you would have more of a turnover in utilization of the space. That's what we're leaning towards in doing, citywide. The commercial meter, you have up until 3 hours to park at a space where it's commercial meter parking. And if you want to be there longer, of course, you would have to pay more to be at that, in that space.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, well, I mean,
yeah.
part of the, I don't really understand what it means to have a 3-hour limit on a meter if you can just keep feeding the meter to go beyond that. But
The city
separate from that, I guess.
The city doesn't care. It's a revenue raiser, and if
Sure,
you don't
yeah,
have any
I can see
enforcement,
that.
if you don't have any enforcement, you're gonna just have people doing what you said. Of course.
I mean,
Okay, so
yeah, go ahead.
is there a 2-hour loading zone? I mean, we're talking about a 1-hour loading zone that's not a metered zone. Is there, and I thought originally you were saying, well, they want to phase out 1-hour zones and now we have 2-hour zones. But it sounds like the 2-hour zones you're referring to are metered zones. They're not 2-hour loading zones. That's a hard limit. I just want to make sure I understand. Okay, got it. All right. And then the other zoning, you were talking about no standing zones, which are much more restrictive, and folks there would be essentially limited to 15 minutes.
That's correct. Like a no parking or no standing. You can utilize that curb for expeditious pickup and drop off or loading and unloading, but you can be there all day, obviously, because you're guaranteed to get a ticket. Okay.
All right. So one question then that I have for Avi is, I don't know if that's appealing to you at all, the idea of a no standing zone or something with, 15 minutes is a short time. You've been talking to us about small vendors who it sounds like are able to do their stuff pretty quickly. I don't know if all of your deliveries are coming from people at that level. You may get larger trucks or what have you. So that's probably not going to solve your problem. So, okay. So it sounds to me like the 1-hour loading zone that we're suggesting is kind of the best option. But I just wanted to.
But Russell, it sounds like there's some, I didn't even know about this. It sounds like there's some precedence here, because Colleen is explaining that there is something called like 15-minute for expeditious loading and unloading, which I can understand. I mean, I have an apartment in the city. I know what it's like to, just drop something off quickly, pick someone up. I get that. But this is, a supermarket situation, a retail situation where, a guy dropping off muffins, yeah, he could do it in 10 minutes, but you get an 18-wheeler truck delivering groceries, right? That'll take an hour to unload, the 18-wheeler truck.
Yeah, understood. I thought it was worth it. Yeah,
I wanted to 40 to 50 deliveries a day. So it's, they come and go quickly.
So yeah, I mean, my what I was hoping to do is just explore what the options were and see if there was a way that's something within the stuff that it sounds like DOT is sort of more inclined to do. But I think in the absence of something that fits better, it seems to, I think the resolution is proposed where we're just going to ask them to do the 1-hour loading and essentially, I guess, make an exception to sort of bring that back in this area. I think makes sense. So I'm supportive of that.
Michelle is next, I think. Go ahead, Michelle.
No, I'd spoken. I guess my hand didn't come down, but
okay.
Yes, I'm very supportive of this 1-hour loading zone. I support the resolution.
Thanks. And Billy Freeland is next.
Yep. So look, I'm happy to support this as well for the sake of trying to do something and see if it makes a difference. But I just want to say, for the record, I don't think this is going to really help address a mammoth problem of Amazon and other companies taking advantage of our streets. And what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to fine these companies much more significantly than we currently are. There's a stipulated fine program that Amazon does not participate in, last I checked, but other companies like FedEx do participate in. That program, I think, it just doesn't go far enough in terms of the fines and penalties these companies need to be paying. And we need to be doing something to change or add more dedicated, loading and unloading spaces on our curbside. But so I don't think this is going to do enough. And I don't know whether in a resolution now or at another meeting it's appropriate, but we should be supporting more stringent fines on these companies. And then I don't know the status of this, but there is a council bill to study the rise of e-commerce and what it's doing to our curbside. I think that's something that we should support, but given that we haven't had any presentation on it, I'm not sure that we can do it at this meeting. But I just think we're going to have to go far beyond the current conversation if we're really going to get our arms around Amazon, because I don't think this is going to solve the problem.
I just want to say, Billy, I agree with you entirely. And that raises one other question as far as one last potential idea that we may want to consider. And that is, and let me ask Mr. Keener this as well. If we were to expand the commercial loading zone across the entire block, because as you know, north of your store location, it transitions over to just general metered parking with a 2-hour limit. But if we were to create more commercial parking space on that block, maybe my thought is perhaps Amazon would be able to use part of it, and then you'd have additional space for your vehicles.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting idea. I think what that would create is a mecca for these types of deliveries. Like, it would quickly spread. This is where you go. You'll get everyone will be there. The idea that Colleen mentioned before, the whole point of loading and unloading is to do it expeditiously. It's not to provide warehousing. Now, because of e-commerce, there is a need for warehousing, right? And I know you guys will talk about this later, but it should be in designated spaces called, instead of loading and unloading spaces, they should be called warehousing spaces, because that's really what it is. And in fact, these companies that are warehousing there, the city should charge them property taxes. Right?
So-
That's the way to get revenue, not to put in $5 into a meter. Like, we're paying $1 million a year for this one store in property taxes to New York City, and they're going to be putting in $5 into a meter. As you're flying the private jets to St. Bart's. It's crazy.
So the whole point of commercial loading zone is to allow curbside access, free up curbside access. But clearly Amazon is, being very abusive with the space directly near your supermarket.
Look, we already had a presentation about, and we're going to talk a little bit more about it, about special zones for these kinds of, trucks. And so that'll help, I think, if you have designated areas for them to park in, so they wouldn't be in front of your store. But, that's something that DOT is working on. It hasn't been fully implemented, and there's still more work to be done. But I think that will be helpful once they get it implemented. We're going to talk about it a little bit right after this. So let's see where we are now here. Rita Popper, are we ready to vote on this?
Call the question.
Thank you. Okay.
All right, if you don't mind, let me just do a roll call.
Yeah. Why don't you do the roll call? Well, if you're doing the roll call, why don't you, okay, go ahead.
Well, I'm just gonna make sure that I'm listing all the members that I see on the meeting right now. If anyone does not hear their name and is present, please let me know. I see myself, Chuck, Barbara Rudder, Barry, Billy, Kaz, Felice, Lori, Marco, Rami, Rebecca Dangor, Rita, Russell, Trisha, Valerie, Michelle, and Mrs. Brown.
Yes, is there anybody else there? We have a nice group. Okay. I think you got Marco, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, good. Okay, so if you're in favor of this, you don't have to do anything. If you want to vote, if you want to abstain or vote no, please raise your hand and we can call on you and you can register your vote. So it looks like unanimous. The approved. And obviously this will come up at our board meeting 2 weeks from today, which will be an in-person board meeting, I believe. Our board chair sent a note out. Yes, thumbs up.
Yes, it will.
Okay,
So
thank
good.
you. Thank you.
Okay.
I just also want to say that I thank all of you. It's 9 o'clock at night. You guys are doing this on your personal time. And it shows your love of New York the same way we love New York. And we really thank you. But we really are one family. We appreciate it.
Appreciate your willingness to do business here. And just like there are a lot of, and the commercial rent tax that you mentioned should be something that should be eliminated. And that's something the city could do. They've cut back on it a little bit, but it should be eliminated.
Thank you.
Okay, so next we're going to talk about the discussion that's close to this is e-commerce truck unloading. And this is the Amazon and Fresh Direct stuff. We had some presentation on this before. Is there, I don't know if anyone else is here, but we have Colleen, obviously. We always like to hear from. But is there anyone else, Colleen, with you on this subject?
One second, let me unmute Colleen.
Unmute Colleen, yeah.
Hey, Chuck, no, I didn't even know that you're asking DOT to speak about this. I thought this was more something of a discussion from the community board level.
Yeah,
Well, it is, but we just like to get it. Is there, where do things stand? Anything further to report?
Anything further with, I'm sorry.
With this, with this proposal for the, unloading areas.
And dealing with the warehousing issue.
Yeah, to deal with the warehousing.
So I'm sorry, I'm at loss. I'm not familiar with this. Were you working with someone at DOT on this or?
No. We based on the last item. So we originally were contacted by Avi Kaner from Morgan Williams. And ironically, we also received some complaints from Amazon about how they were being treated or something at that location, even though they are clearly the ones who are in the wrong over here. So we originally were hoping that we can initiate a discussion, and we were looking to invite Amazon and Fresh Direct, although maybe that's one of the topics that maybe we'll have to revisit at a future meeting. But we want to be able to have that discussion and find out from some of these e-commerce retailers what their perspective is and what they're looking for, and try to find a solution and try to be able to have an open line of communication with them so they can understand just how disruptive they're being to our community, to our businesses, to our residents. And along those same lines, we were just wondering from your perspective if there's any action that is being considered by DOT, if this is parts of the streets plan initiative, or I know there are different freight initiatives that are ongoing, just to have a sense of what this direction the city is moving in.
Yeah. So, okay, now I understand. So this, in general, is a bigger part of the New York City DOT streets plan. And we have the Office of Freight and Mobility. And we are working with a lot of commercial retailers such as Amazon, Target, Whole Foods to assist with their commercial loading needs, whether it's during the day or late at night or early in the morning. So, I think it would be best if when the community decides to have a conversation with Amazon, that, our Office of Freight and Mobility is part of that, because they would be able to tell you exactly about their engagement plan and what they have done with working with a lot of these companies.
So full disclosure, I've seen presentations myself from the Office of Freight and Mobility in my professional life. My question for you, Colleen, is if we were to consider inviting someone from that group to just brief us and to have a discussion, would that be something that would be possible?
Of course, yes.
I thought we saw something about potential areas that could be used for this. And I thought it's been done in certain other areas of the city already.
It has in other locations, but I don't think we have done anything in Community Board 8 yet. I might be wrong.
Okay, well, we should follow up on that.
Yeah,
try to.
But I think the best approach would be, Craig, if the board wants to have a joint meeting, we'll be more than happy to participate in that.
A joint meeting between
with the Fresh Directs, Amazon's,
Direct, Amazon, and the community board. Yes, we would love to be a part of that conversation.
So would we.
Okay.
Yeah.
Colleen, do you have anything that we put off about the streets master plan. Is there anything you wanted to do to bring us up to date
Sure.
on?
So I'll give you an update about that. So as many of you know, New York City DOT is currently developing the first New York City streets plan in response to local law 195. The 5-year plan seeks to improve the safety, accessibility, and quality of the city streets for all New Yorkers. It involves an in-depth analysis of the current planning efforts and will set equitable and ambitious goals for the city streets. So New York City DOT aims to equitably engage as many New York City residents as possible, including constituents from Community Board 8. The public engagement efforts, including an online engagement platform and a series of virtual engagement workshops, will help New York City DOT understand the specific needs of your community members in regards to New York City streets and allow your constituents the opportunity to share what they would like to see included in the New York City streets plan. We hope that the community board would share the following resources with the constituents so that they may have an opportunity to learn more about the plan and participate in the following community engagement efforts. So we greatly would appreciate the community board's help in spreading this. And the plan is on our website. It's nyc.gov/New York City Streets Plan. And right now there is the online engagement platform, which is live, and you may use this tool to provide valuable input regarding New York City streets in which you live and frequent. Going beyond the traditional survey, the platform includes interactive activities such as mapping exercise, a budget allocation activity, as well as survey questions. Responses will help New York City DOT understand the specific needs of your community members in regards to NYC streets. Completing the online engagement tool should take no more than 10 minutes. That's what they anticipate. And we are planning to have virtual public workshops in the coming months, which DOT will conduct a series of the public workshop across the city. And I think in your area, which is Community Board 8, we are looking to do this public workshop next week, Tuesday, as a matter of fact, from 6 to 8 p.m. So I'm going to click and see exactly if we have identified a location, but right now we've created flyers, which we will share. I will send that to Will, so he can have that and the community board can share that or put it on its website.
Okay.
Great. Once I have that information, Will, I will send that to you in the morning. I'll send it to you with the flyer.
Okay.
Give me 1 second. I think we actually have it.
You have it? Okay. I was trying to retrieve it, but my internet is very slow because
Was this the plan?
let me see. Yeah, this is it. Yep, that's it.
So we have it. Yeah, we should make it available.
Yes, if you can put it on your website, that would be fantastic.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Colleen. We have a couple of revocable consents here that we need to deal with. And the first is for a snow melt system under the sidewalk of 1228 Madison Avenue. Is anyone here for the applicant? Will, do we have anyone? You know?
I saw somebody's hand go up and then go back down. If you're here for that item, looks like Mark Sullivan. Mark Sullivan, can you unmute?
Yeah, why don't we unmute him and.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great.
Yes.
Okay, do you want me to screen share or do you have the drawings?
No, go ahead and screen share.
Yeah, screen share, that would be helpful.
Okay. And I hope you could see that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. This is a new building project that's been under construction for about 2 or 3 years now. And as part of the completion of the building, they want to incorporate a automatic snow melting system in front of the front residential door of the building. The building, as you can see on the sheet, if you could read it, it's in fine detail, is between East 88th Street and East 89th Street on the west side of Madison Avenue. And the construction shots don't show you much of anything at all. The next sheet shows you a detail of the snow melt system proposed for the in front of the residential entrance. This is an embedded snow melt system. It's basically a 1/4-inch thick electrical cables that are buried in the sidewalk in a grid pattern, as you see. And the intention, as I mentioned earlier, is to automatically melt accumulations of snow. And this avoids, putting down chemicals and having shoveling right in front of the building. The advantage of these systems, as you may or may not know, is they're only turned on when it snows. And in New York lately, that's only 2 or 3 times a year.
Where is it serviced from before we, by the way, if you have to service it, where do you?
Well,
where's
with
the access to it?
the way you service an electric snow melt system, unlike a hydronic system, is you have to replace the entire pavement. So for instance, if the cable gets nicked, there's no repairing the cable. So you pull up the concrete sidewalk and you put the system back down again. When it arrives from the manufacturer, you buy an exact length. In this case here, I think the cable is something in the order of 1,000 linear feet. And if you, while you're installing it, you damage it, you throw it away and you start all over again.
Okay, let's see. I see some questionnaires, and why don't I start with Michelle? I know that Michelle always has a number of questions on these issues.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm going to address this, but my hand was also up for the last item. And I'm going to ask that as we do new or old business, that I be permitted to speak about the warehousing, about locations for, Amazon to stage. I'm thinking they should be renting storefronts. I want an opportunity later, if I may, just to make a final point. But let me address this. So we've had many presentations of snow melt systems. They're all a little different. And we always ask about access for repairs, et cetera, et cetera. We don't often hear that it's an all or none situation. We're often told that there's either a vault next to it or there's access to the system from a building for whatever other kind of maintenance might be necessary, because we're not too keen on having to break up the sidewalk and do all that and inconvenience pedestrians, et cetera, et cetera. So could you tell us a little bit more about this particular system versus others? And what kind of intermittent or repairs or routine upkeep does this system need, and how invasive will that be and intrusive to the community?
Okay, with snow melting systems, there's really 2 types of systems that they are out there. One is a hydronic system that sends heated water with a glycol mixture through tubes that are typically about 3/4 of an inch in diameter. And the material is called PEX. It's like a flexible plastic pipe. And you lay it down in a similar pattern to what you're seeing here. That system is repairable. But in order to repair it, you have to dig out where the damaged pipe is, and you have to put a coupling on it and breach over the broken portion of the pipe. The usual way either of these 2 systems gets damaged is if someone comes along, for instance, if DOT comes along and puts in a sign pole in front of this entrance, they'll core drill a round hole, and if they're lucky or unlucky, they'll nick the cable if it's the electric system, or they'll actually hit the hydronic system and water will come out of the hole. Usually you find out that the system's not working during a snowfall. The system goes on, and if it doesn't melt the snow, you know you have a problem. The reason why I say this system isn't repairable, because the cabling is very similar to an electric blanket or a heating pad. If you nick the cabling within that, you really can't fix it. The good news here is that if you don't nick the cable, these systems will last for decades. So it's only outside forces that generally damage hydronic systems, mostly the case of people drilling holes into it.
So let me ask you, so that's good that they last a very long time if they're not breached in any way. Is there any signage that goes along with this or any notice that goes along with this that can advise, whether it be the DOT or the cable people, that such a system exists and that if they are proposing work or planning work, that they acknowledge that and be mindful of it? Because it seems to me if there's no such notice, the thing is sitting there, but it's a mystery. I mean, nobody knows it's there. So if Con Ed had to lay a cable or anybody had to do any work, they don't even know to be mindful of it. Is there such a thing as like a sticker that goes on the building's door to say there's a, snow melt system and it goes 4 feet by 5 feet, something that informs a potential worker?
Well, what I've seen in the past done, similar to what you see down in the cast iron district, you'll see a sign that says hollow sidewalk. And that tells people they shouldn't drive their cars on the sidewalk because it'll collapse the vaults that are underneath. I have seen discrete signs that you can place in the storefront that say heated sidewalk, no digging. I've seen that in the past.
Okay, that would make sense. I think the vault, we understand that has to do with the weight of the vehicle. It can collapse. But, so you're saying the building has a storefront on the first floor?
Well, there's the storefront on either side of the two doors.
But does the snow melt system is just in front of the main doors? They're in front of the storefront entries as well?
It's not in front of the retail storefronts. It's only in front of the residential entrance.
And what's the approximate dimension?
The dimensions are 16 feet, 6 inches wide by 11 inches from the building to the curb.
16 by 6'11", you said?
No, 16.6 by 11 feet.
So it's pretty substantial. So will you be putting such a sign in the front door of the building?
I'm going to recommend that to the owner, a very small placard on the glass doors, so that some acknowledgement on the outside that there is something that you shouldn't dig into for fear of damaging it.
For me, that would be a necessity. I tend to support this, but it seems to me that without such notice, you're leaving yourself open and to all kinds of damage, and also for the community to be inconvenienced, not to mention the residents of the building. Mm-hmm. So I'll support it if you're saying that it needs virtually no maintenance unless it's breached in some way.
I'll make the recommendation.
Can we if we have a resolution, can we put that in our whereases saying
Sure.
that the representative is saying that he will present this to the owner and have such a sign, et cetera, et cetera? Recommend, I should say.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Valerie Mason, I think, is next. Can we unmute Valerie?
Hi, I got caught. I was trying to talk to the last item. So if you want to hold me over till new business, I'll wait till then.
Okay, great.
All right, thanks.
Next is costs. Spanuletti, can we?
Yeah, move to approve with Michelle's stipulations.
Okay. Is there a second to that? Do we see second? I see
Harry.
some hands. Okay. Michelle, Rita, and Laurie. Okay. All right. Any further discussion? I see Marco Tamayo. Can we unmute Marco?
Thank you, Chuck. I would like to ask a question. Is this system is going to work only when there is snow?
That's the only time it's on, is when it's snowing out.
Okay, so the question is, can we put in the stipulation that this system will be operating just only when you have snow? Can you accept that?
Oh yeah, certainly, because
Oh, okay.
having it on when there's no snow just runs your energy bill up.
I have very suspicious that it's gonna keep working because in these places, money is not a problem, but that is completely affect the environment using the electricity in that direction. So if you are in agreement, I think I will support this application. Thank you.
Okay, any further discussion? Do we see, I don't see anyone else. Do you see any?
Yeah, Rebecca
Seeing none?
Dengor.
Oh,
A call
Rebecca.
to question?
Okay, the question's been called. So if everyone will be presumed to be in favor of this resolution unless they raise their hand to abstain, vote no, or something else, not voting for cause, which I think would be unlikely.
And at this point, I'm seeing on the list, let me just make sure that I have everyone's name. Myself, Chuck, Barbara Rudder, Barry, Billy, Kaz, Felice, Lori, Marco, Rami, Rebecca Dangor, Rita, Tricia, Valerie, Michelle, Mrs. Brown.
Did you say Barbara Rudder?
I saw Barbara Rudder's iPhone listed.
Oh, yes, you're right. I'm sorry. Peter S.'s iPhone. Peter, are you a board member?
I'm a public member, and
Peter Borak.
Yeah, no worries. I've been quiet this meeting, but I vote in favor of this, so I just wanted my vote to be.
Have you been here the whole meeting? Did you?
I have.
Okay, so you were here for the other one as well. Okay, just want to make sure I have you.
I had to run to the bathroom, so I maybe missed the actual vote on the other issue. So I was in favor of it, though.
You got to hang in here.
I know. Am I not allowed to pee? No, I was in favor of it, though. So
I won't get it. I won't get into that.
This is like 48 after hours now.
Okay, we have now, our next item is a revocable consent for a snow melt system under the sidewalk of 172 East 73rd Street. And this is someone, I hope someone is here for this, since this is about the third time we've put it on the agenda. Is anyone here?
Yes.
Oh, Sonia,
yes.
Sonia
here.
Wright is
and
here?
I do
Okay.
apologize. Yes, thank you so much for having us, and thank you for being here so late. I'm actually in Atitlan, Guatemala, so I am very happy to join you guys. And we're presenting the snow melt at 172, 174 East 73rd. And my peer from the previous application made a good argument about an addition about what a snow melt is. It is 15 feet deep by 20 feet, 25 feet wide sidewalk. And in comparison to my peer from the previous application, this is going to be an open-door system. So it's going to have glycol, and the maintenance, everything is going to be in the basement. I can share a screen if you'd like, and I can show you the drawings I sent for the application. So this is a brownstone that we recently renovated. And the last piece of the puzzle is to do the snow melt in front of the house. And one of the members of the board made a comment about when the snow melt would be on or off. And these usually are, they have a specific controller that knows the weather, and so it will come on just when it snows. And I also heard the previous comment on whether we should have a sign that indicates that there's a snow melt in front of the building. So we definitely will suggest that to the owner, and we'll make sure that it is posted at the front of the house.
So this is the other kind of system, and this is a water where water is circulated through then, right?
Exactly, and it has glycol, so when
Right.
it's really
Right.
cold outside, it doesn't freeze.
And everything is serviced, as you said, from the basement there.
Exactly, right.
Okay. Questions? Let's see. So let's see what we have here. I know we have
You have Michelle and Marco, and then Rebecca
Michelle
Bangor.
and Rebecca. Yeah, Michelle, go ahead.
Yeah, I move to approve since
Okay,
there seems to be accessibility and all the things we've asked about
Is
before.
there a second to hear for this?
Barry.
Okay, second. Okay, go ahead, Michelle. Do you want to say anything else?
Yeah, I was just saying, in light of all the questions that were answered with the previous applicant, and there's been a distinction made between this system and the other system. And this system does provide access from inside the building, I believe the applicant said.
Yes.
So that if there's need for repair, it appears to be true that you don't have to break up the entire sidewalk to do a minor repair. If that is all true, if she can confirm that, then I stand to move to approve.
So I just want to make the clarification that if there is a puncture on the pipe, there is a section that would have to be removed and fix the pipe. And that's why, the signs and telling people that there is something there is important. But everything can be serviced from inside the basement. But if there's pressure on the pipe caused by, I don't know, Con Ed or whoever else, then
understood.
That section, not the entire sidewalk, but just that section.
That section would have to be. Okay, understood. Move to approve.
Okay. Marco is next, I think. Marco?
Yeah, go ahead, Marco.
Oh, thank you, Chuck. This system that you installed, what kind of pipe are you using? Metal pipe or PEG too? Can you hear me?
Oh, Sonia, you muted yourself. Go ahead and unmute again.
Okay, I'm so sorry. Yes, so it's going to be PEX.
PEX.
So it's kind of a, yes, PEX.
So you're gonna you have to have an independent boiler for that system?
An independent boiler? No, it is the same boiler that we use for the house. It's not an independent one, but it just has a heat exchanger that makes sure that the glycol in that loop stays isolated. Then the heat from the boiler is just exchanges, and that's how the water gets.
Does the house
that's how the energy gets transferred.
Does the house has an RCP?
An RCP?
Yeah, a check valve.
Yes, it does. Absolutely.
Does?
Yes.
Why no you don't specify in the drawings?
There is mechanical packaged, an MVP set that was not required to be included in the drawings, but there is a check valve and there is a heat exchanger and there is a full mechanical set that integrates this system into the main system of the house. For the purpose of this application,
I think is required because the antifreezer can easily be combined with the potable water and then can poison the inside of the building. If they have an RCP valve, the water will not contaminate outside of the building. And that is what is extremely important to have this RCP valve. And they should be specified in the drawings.
So there is a heat so there is a heat I'm
go
sorry.
Ahead, please. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, so there is a heat exchanger that isolates the glycol water with the main loop of the house. And that is in a MEP drawing approved by DOB, but for the purpose of this application, they did not require us to submit an MEP drawing, just the layout of the actual.
Usually DOB doesn't check that part. What the institution checked that part is DEP, and that has to be filed an RCP valve in DEP. This is extremely important for that part, for the system. I mean, the system will be fine. I don't have a problem. My concern is it could poison the whole neighborhood with that RCP valve. And we, as a matter of fact,
it's definitely not.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, no, there is a heat. Yeah, no, there is a heat exchanger. We have worked with systems, with geothermal systems, with very complex systems before, and the heat exchanger is what allows you to isolate one side of a glycol system, for example, and exchange the energies through that heat exchanger because it has different loops. So that's what we have in this system.
No, I'm fully aware of those systems, the heat exchange. I know that is the most sophisticated system that there is in the market, and it's high efficiency too. I know that, but the issue is at any time the two systems, which is the potable water and the antifreezes, can be combined with unintentionally, and that creates a serious trouble. This is extremely important. This is a safety matter for the house and for the entire neighborhood. And look,
yeah,
as long as you put in the stipulation that you are guaranteed that you put in an RCP valve, I will support this application. How about that?
Yes. So there is a heat exchanger that will never ever allow for the two to cross paths. Yes.
We could put some language in that the system is designed so that there can never be any contamination with glycol of the regular water system.
Basically, they should be saying is the system, the houses should have an RCP, period. And if you do it or don't do it, that's your responsibility. Simple.
Okay. No, we understand. I think we understand, Margaret. Thank you.
Thank you.
Rebecca,
thank you,
I guess
Marco.
Rebecca Dangor is next. Rebecca.
Call to question.
Seconded by Cause.
Seconded by Cause. I don't know whether Mrs. Brown, if she had anything before we call it. Did you have any comment on it? I didn't want to, we don't have many, that's the only other person who wanted to comment. So why don't
Mrs. Brown, you can unmute.
Mrs. Brown, did you have any?
Mrs. Brown, you can unmute at any point.
Before we vote.
Okay.
No. Okay. All right. So everyone will be presumed to be in favor of it. If you'd like to abstain or vote no or or not voting for cause, please raise your hand.
And I think we have the same members.
Okay, same configuration
as the last one.
Okay, good. All right. Now, I think we've finished all of our items. Now, there may be, I know that some people wanted to have some further old business or new business, but if so, let's see who, I know, let me ask, well, just, yeah, raise your hands on me. Let's see. So we have Michelle first, Michelle Birnbaum.
Thank you. Yeah, about, I wanted to address the commercial parking for Amazon et al. I personally am opposed to those commercial loading zones, their designation, for the following reasons. They, along with all the restaurants that are on the streets are taken up with just everything. There's no parking. It's being eliminated more and more. And people do have a right to have some public local parking, especially since the rule to include parking in new construction was virtually disbanded many years ago. So, which raised the cost of all the garages to be almost prohibitive. But having said that, it seems to me that these are businesses that are looking for distribution sites. Well, they should rent some of our empty storefronts. They're operating from one specific position. So if they park themselves on 3rd Avenue, say, and 87th Street, and they're distributing to the wider 10-block area in every direction, there seems to me to be no reason that they can't rent a storefront as a local distribution center. Some of the department stores, I think it was Bloomingdale's or Neiman's or somebody, they actually rented a local storefront that's only for pickup and drop off. They're not even selling any merchandise there. So clearly there's a precedent for that. And if we can finally arrange to have these companies come to us, and it would be wonderful to have them all come and attend one meeting so that we can talk to them, I think that's something that we should really push for. Commercial real estate is struggling. You hear what a store like Morton Williams, what kind of yearly expenses they have. And it certainly makes sense for these companies to have local distribution areas and not infringe on the other curbside benefits that might benefit the rest of the community. So I just wanted to get that point out there, and then just say, if you could get them all on the calendar as soon as possible, I think it'd be helpful.
Michelle, we are trying to, again, with us, why don't we unmute Felice?
Hi, I was just wondering if DOT can give us an update on the Queensboro Bridge bike path and the plans to transform the South Outer Roadway into a bike path or a pedestrian path, or since it's late, come back at the next meeting and provide us with an update on the status of that project.
I don't see Colleen on the call.
Colleen left, so we'll send an email asking her to.
We'll get an answer for that, Felice. I think Colleen left.
Okay, thank you.
We'll get a status on that. Valerie Mason, I believe, is next. Can we unmute Valerie?
Thanks. I just wanted to go back. I think Colleen mentioned that they were going to have some meeting for the public to discuss that plan next week.
I don't think so. I think it's what they're talking about is interactive site, isn't it, or something like that?
Yeah, there is. It was the Zoom link that I sent at 9:20 in the chat. But I'll go ahead and put that back in the chat
for
again.
Tuesday. Oh, you're right.
Yeah,
the meeting on Tuesday. Yes.
I just think that's not enough notice, and those kinds of things should not happen during the summer if they're really looking to get input from the community. And we should make a complaint about that. They shouldn't be able to get away with that as asking for input from the community and the public on matters like that. It's just not fair. And I think if there is one during next week, we should specifically ask that there be another one in the fall when people are around.
Yeah, we can. I agree. I thought the same thing, that it seemed like it was awfully short notice since we hadn't heard anything about it.
Right. I mean, it was just like a throwaway. If you hadn't asked her about the plan, she would never even have mentioned that.
Yeah.
So, I just think that's not the way to operate. And that's all I want to say. Thank you and good night.
Barry Schneider, who's also been very patient. Can we unmute Barry?
It's actually Judy Schneider.
Oh.
Hi there.
It says Barry, but it's Judy. What happened?
Yes, well, I took over his computer, turned off mine. What can I tell you? Two things. One, talking about all these trucks and parking like Amazon, they get these tickets and they make a deal with the city and they pay a flat amount each year. UPS, FedEx, they all have a deal with the city. Colleen has said so. And so giving them a ticket isn't going to settle the problem. They're going to pay that amount for doing business. But my other question is, could we please put back on the agenda, and I've asked this question the last few months, to have the MTA come back. And could they please tell us what's happening with the handicap station at 68th Street, at 69th Street, at Hunter College? There's been a lot of talk in the community and a lot of words going around, and I'd like to hear from our MTA friends at a meeting on record what they have to say about what's happening with this specific location, plus the fact we haven't heard from them in a while.
When I mentioned earlier that we have a backlog of items, that's probably
Right.
at the top of the list. So
Right.
we'll invite them for September.
Judy,
Okay, thank you.
I put that on the list when like I said I would, but we had a backlog, as you could see.
Yes, I know. It's a busy committee. Happy holiday, everybody. Have a good summer.
Same, right. We'll see you at the regular meeting probably. Rita Popper is our.
Barry, I'm leaving.
Go ahead, Rita.
Hi. I had sent in photographs of the water situation on James Cagney Place. I'm not going to go through it tonight. We really have to go through DOT, when they say it's not happening, but we now have pictures of it really happening. And we will address that, it's not in this particular venue, but in another venue. But I did want to bring out one thing. We talk about all the traffic laws or non-laws about bikes and mopeds and yada, yada, yada. The United States is slow to come to that transportation mode because gasoline was cheaper here and it was more expensive in Europe. So my question is, do you think that it would help us if we understood how the people who have dealt with this for years and years and years, like in London, in Paris, in Rome, if we understood how they are able to harness these users, and they have a greater amount of users proportionally than we do. And they seem to have a handle on it. It was very nice hearing from the gentleman that we heard from tonight, but I'm not going away with a warm, fuzzy feeling that anything is going to be done. And it only is exponentially getting worse. So I'm not suggesting, though I will tell you I have a passport, is that this could be done by letter, or it's got to be like the head of DOT talking to head of DOT in London, the head of DOT in Italy, the head of DOT. Let's get the answers. We're choking. We discuss it at every single meeting, and we're getting no place. Maybe we need a better understanding of what is being done and how we could do it. Just a suggestion.
No, well, we can certainly look at that. One thing I will say, though, as one who's traveled to all those countries that you were talking about, is that the cultures are a little bit different than they are here. And people tend to follow the law generally a little better than people do here. And so I think that's part of the problem. I mean, we're obviously much bigger country, and they have, and a lot of those countries have central governments that run the major cities and stuff. So it's a little different situation, and but I think it's worth looking at.
Chuck, I'm not buying it anymore that people who live in the United States are too stupid to follow the law.
It's not stupid. It's not stupidity.
No, only people who in Europe, they know how to follow the law. So when I know I shouldn't use the word stupid. They're just, I don't know, rebellious is a better definition. But so do we suffer because we're rebellious? If we keep adding motorize this and motorize that, it's getting worse. It's not getting better. And there doesn't seem to be a solution. And we don't understand how it works someplace else. And maybe we should introduce it the way it was introduced in that country. Didn't just grow up overnight. Suggestion, and we haven't tried it.
We'll take a look and see what we can find out. Okay, any other, Rebecca Dangor? Would you like to say something?
Yeah, if we're looking at other cities, I just add Stockholm to that list. But I would remind everyone there is a major time difference. So I think maybe it's research we should do on our own time, or input we should get ahead of a meeting that we can discuss.
Oh, sure. Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
of course.
We're likely to get anyone from any of those cities to come to a meeting at 6:30.
We could call someone in. We could call someone in China right now, and we get them in the morning. But no, we won't do this during a meeting. Hopefully.
But I would add Stockholm to
Okay.
list of queries.
Okay, now Lori Boris, the last word. Hopefully, I mean, go ahead. Why don't Lori? Do you want to unmute Lori?
Yes. Hi. Okay. So first of all, I want to second Rita Popper's idea that we all go on a field trip. I think that's really the only way for us to do that is to grab the passport and go because I'm dying to get out of my apartment. But seriously, I think that you want to consider the idea that all of those places that you mentioned, which I have been to, did not start the same way that we did. They don't have Cadillac-sized cars. They don't have trucks that, take 2 blocks, to go around the corner. It's just a different atmosphere entirely. Like they started small. And so the smaller, faster, whatever it is, motorized vehicles fit into the traffic pattern a whole lot better than the ones in our universe. But anyway, that's all I wanted to say. But I definitely second the field trip idea. All right, I'm done.
I think we are adjourned unless anyone has something that they're dying to say. And I appreciate everybody's participation and good thoughts. And we will be addressing these situations as we go along. We have a crammed agenda. So we'll see the committee back in September and the rest at the meeting coming up later this month. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye. And thank you, Will, for handling everything with